independence in the early 50s. We were ready, fully functioning. He was the first. A king in the legislative arm. There was nothing like Senate, nothing like that. He was a king that became a minister in that government. He was a king and a political leader at the same time who played a very pivotal role in pioneering what is called governance in Nigeria. Immediately, Oni Adesoji Aderemi realized that their effort had been frustrated. A lot of people didn't know what he did with that. Is someone that we should immortalize. A lot of people don't know, but I want the entire world to know. Oh, he resigned. Sorry, I'm back again. Are you with me? So he resigned from that government and came back to the palace. He set a very example for our political leaders of today. If we've been celebrating him for a long time, we would have inculcated, we would have nurtured that behavioral pattern that when things are not going well with you, when you're not comfortable in any political structure, please resign. It's honorable to bow, take a bow. Do our political leaders take a bow these days? Have you heard of any one of them that took a bow? They don't want to take a bow. Rather, they want to be there into perpetuity. So you can see that we do not celebrate ourselves enough. Our hero immediately after independence, eventually it happened in 1960. Grudgingly, I repeat, grudgingly, independence happened in 1960, grudgingly. I am very passionate. I love history. So I've taken my time. Why did they eventually agree to independence? Thanks to mosquito, thanks to malaria breakout. They were dying in a very high numbers. So they grudgingly left our their country, Nigeria. Remember, Oloibiri was discovered in the 50s. Bitumen at the Ondo, Ogun, Lagos Belt, the second largest bitumen deposit in the world, the most purified, discovered in the 50s as well. So they don't want to leave. They would rather die, and thank God they were dying in their numbers. So they left our country for us to rule by ourselves. And we started ruling. In 1960, they came to the palace. That's Oni Adesoji Aderemi. We realized all the good things you did. Please come back and be the governor. And that's how he became the very first governor in again the whole of the entire continent of Africa. He was the first to be the governor general in Western region by virtue of his antecedents and great things he did for this country, for this region. So how can we forget such a person, such an icon, who left a very big shoe? I was talking to one of his children. He said, and I quote, when he died in 1980, when Chief Obafemi Awolowo came to Ife, he broke down so badly and said, where are we going to get the person to fill the shoe of this, our father? The greatest one, and Obafemi said, he doesn't think this shoe can be filled, that he has learned so much from this great mind, from this great king, and all the things he pioneered in the continent of Africa, not only in Nigeria. We should be very appreciative of people like him. When he was the Governor General, he did another thing for his people, very touching. He was also there was a very big struggle in Ondo State then, and the old Oyo State. Majorly, the main source of income for the Western region from produce, cocoa, and many other produce was majorly coming from Ondo and majorly in our war. They had a very big plan to set up, which they had a very good input as well, University of Nigeria, Nsukka. They came up with an initiative that we do not want one single Western influence, and it will be the best in the whole of continent of Africa. They zeroed in and zoned it to Owo because they had the largest chunk of where they're contributing money to develop such. Obafemi Awolowo and other leaders, they all agreed. But the monarchs started having back and forth. Get on did. He said, I want it in Ife, and I will negotiate. I will negotiate it. I can't have it all to myself. I am ready again to resign and hand it over to Olowo to be the head in terms of politics and in terms of being the leader, the chairman of all the traditional rulers, the monarchs. And he said, take it, but please give me this university. I am ready to relinquish this again. Remember, he did it as a fallout of the first African conference, when the colonial people shifted our independence it grudgingly till 1960. He did the same thing again. And guess what? Olowo said, no, you are a natural leader. We all love you. We all love your approach. If it's in Ife, it's in Yoruba land, it belongs to all of us. And the entire Yoruba people came together and designed the best university out of the entire black race, in which is called University of Ife, now renamed to Obafemi Awolowo University. Ladies and gentlemen, all of you that are listening to me, most of you are products of that great institution. Do we give leaders with foresight? They are not only about what they want to gain, they are about what they want to give to their people, and they are leading by example. I can go on and on. For me, every day is celebration of Oni Adesoji Aderemi. I have found favor as Oni Adeyeye Eniton Ogunwusi Ojaja II in the presence of my Creator, God Almighty, and the presence of good people that have been very privileged to serve. I will forever, every day of my life, to emulate Oni Adesoji Aderemi. All his good deeds and so on a final note, the problem of our society is we are always forgetting our heroes. We do not have a mentor-mentee relationship again. So stop blaming politicians. Let us blame ourselves. What are we going to let our children know? We have discovered the fourth generation of Oni Adesoji Aderemi now. Fourth generation within 90 years. He ruled for 50 years. We're celebrating his absence, yet he's still part of us today for 40 years. So 50 and 40 making 90 years. Within 90 years, a single man has actually produced 4 generations. More generations are still coming. This has to continue to lead the country right, knowing fully well that whenever there is leadership, there will be followership. What are you doing to change the narratives? What are we all doing? Are we going to continue to follow money to politics? Money is not everything. Money fizzles away in like a flash of pan. But your legacy will never fizzle away. How many of our political leaders are they going to remember even after 5 years they leave office? After 10 years they leave office? After 20 years, not even knowing when they leave this world. And they will now do their posthumous. I want each and every one of us to remember that everything we do, good or bad, history will judge all of us. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for joining this. It's a very passionate celebration for me. I am still celebrating him. I celebrated him till dawn yesterday. I will celebrate him again today, and I'll continue to celebrate him forever. Thank you very much. God bless you, and thank you for listening.
Yes. Kabiesio. Thank you so much. Because of what they call the new normal, we cannot give you a standing ovation, but be assured that we are giving that standing ovation from our hearts. Thank you so much. Kabiesi. Adepelorio. Eshepupo. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that was His Imperial Majesty, Oba Adeyeye Ogunwusi Odaya II. Kabiesi. Adupepupo. Amari Yiwa. Well, as we also go ahead with the program, let me quickly introduce some royal heads that we have here. We have with us Oba Oyekan, Ilufemiloye, Ajose Adekanbi Ilufemiloye, Alapa of Apa Egunawori Kingdom, Badagry West, Lagos State, Kabiesio Ekabo. We are also greeting Professor Abolade Enyila, Chief Technical Advisor to INEC Chairman. Welcome, sir. Professor S.O. Etade of the University of Ibadan. Mrs. Margaret Tilayo Strolarin, Tutor General Permanent Secretary, Education, Lagos State. You are all welcome. As we go ahead, we also introduce others. I'm also happy to now welcome on board. Before then, we also greet Professor Ulu Obafemi, former president of the Nigerian Academy of Letters, a distinguished awardee NOM FNL. You're welcome, sir. We also greet Professor Pai Emeritus Pai Obayan from the University of Ibadan. Welcome, sir. So let's quickly go to our presentation. Please note your questions and comments so that we package everything together and pass them on to the speakers. May I quickly call on Professor Shinyo Oyeweso, a professor of history and Director General of Center for Black and Global Understanding, Osogbo, Osun State. Professor Oyeweso, please, you have the floor.
Kábíyèsí Onírìṣà, kádé pẹ́ lórí, kí bàtà pẹ́ lẹ́sẹ̀, kí àṣẹ kó pẹ́ lẹ́nu, kí àwọn olórí náà kàn máa ṣiṣẹ́ bí. Ní àti ọ̀dọ̀ kábíyèsí, mo wá kí gbogbo àwọn ọba tó wà níkàlẹ̀, ọba ládéládé, lóyè lóyè. Mo kí gbogbo àwọn ọ̀jọ̀gbọ́n tó wà ní ìkàlẹ̀, àwọn ọ̀jọ̀gbọ́n tó mọ oyún inú ìgbín. Àwọn èèyàn máa ń sọ pé professor of history, mo máa ń sọ pé student of history ò ní gbogbo wa, torí pé a máa kọ́ ìtàn yẹn náà lọ ní títí di a fi di àgbà. I will start my starting point will be where Kábíyèsí has largely elaborated. It is a striking coincidence of history that all the panelists today, including the moderator, are all products and beneficiaries of the Oni, Oba Matthew, Titus, Adesoji, Aderemi, Atobatele Kutujoba, ẹni tí wọ́n ti ń pè ní Ọba lọ́la, ever before he was formally crowned in 1930. For all of us here, including my humble self, the greatest legacy that Kábíyèsí left for Ile-Ife, for Yoruba race, for Nigeria, was the pivotal role he played in the process leading to the creation of what was then known as Obafemi Awolowo University. Through the instrumentality of his office, he was able to connect with the major stakeholders in the project, convince them that, look, the appropriate place to site the new university after that of Ibadan would be Ile-Ife. There were other places at that particular point in time. Ado-Ekiti was in contention. Ijebu-Ode was in contention. Owo was in contention. But through shrewd of diplomacy, tact, and his network, he was able to connect with others Chief Obafemi Awolowo in particular, Sir Ladoke Akintola, the Premier. Tó bá jẹ́ pé nǹkan tí bàbá fẹ́ nìyẹn, ó ti di ṣíṣe. And we have University of Ife then. I'm a product of University of Ife. I graduated from that university, first degree, master's degree, and PhD. And I was also a teacher at St. John's Grammar School, Ile-Ife, between October 1983 and October 1985. The moderator, Professor Olutayo Charles Additional, is also a product of that department, all his degree from that department. Professor Akin Alao is also one of our panelists today, also had his first degree and master degree from Ife. Professor Adesoji, all his degree from Ife. And finally, Professor Tunde Babawale is also a great product of Great Ife. So what a nice coincidence of history. So for us today, the role that KBC played in that particular time provided the platform for generations and thousands, not just of Ife, of Ube students and scholars, gave us opportunity to become who we are today. If the University of Ife was not there, where would we and we have gone? So in terms of access to higher education, not just to Ife indigene, but to all Nigerians, that was an imperishable legacy that Oni Adesoji Aderemi left on the stand of time and to which he must be credited. Who was Oni Adesoji Aderemi? The question has been answered several times and is settled in history. When you take a look at the funeral oration that Chief Obafemi Awolowo delivered in 1980, he called him an exceptional monarch, a peace-loving man that he had interaction with for over 40 years, and at no point in time did he find him a very difficult and unapproachable person. He was a man of vision and a man that we can see who saw tomorrow. I do not believe that Adesoji Aderemi is dead. Kings don't die. They only change mortality for immortality. Adesoji Aderemi lives and will continue to live because his legacies are there. They are imperishable. Now, from that point of view, I want to look at who was he. President Muhammadu Buhari. If we read yesterday's news bulletin issued by the president issued by Femi Adesina, very clear that Chief Obafemi Awolowo, 40 years after, left his imprint, not just in the field of education, but also in health, in politics, in diplomacy, and in our national life. So, Governor Oyetola has also this morning issued press release celebrating him as a big breeder, a team player, a man who played a very great role in the creation of what is now known as Osun State. But largely, KBC was essentially a man who was pro-Ife. He wanted an Osun State to be created, but with capital at Ile-Ife. Capital eventually was sited at Osogbo. He was happy with it because he was, in his lifetime, the father of all and still remain the father of all to date. Oni Risa, Kábíyèsí, Ọba Ẹniìtàn Adéyẹyè Ògúnwùsì, Ọjájá II, yesterday said he was going to name his prince Adesoji Aderemi. What better immortalization can we do? What we are doing today, 40 years after, is a process which we immortalize on. And that process of immortalization must start from that university, which he played very good role in establishing. Department of Archaeology, the man concentrated during his lifetime on archaeology, particularly from 1938, when he started collecting all artworks, Ife heads, bronzes, anything that was accidentally discovered in 1938. Till his passage, he worked with a team of archaeologists during that particular period. And there was a varied department of archaeology at that time. But by 1985, around 85 or 87, that Department of Archaeology is no longer, ceased to exist. For the cradle of Yoruba race, we hold it to the memory of Adesoji Aderemi to restore that Department of Archaeology back to the university management. And all stakeholders need something to really do about this. These are recommendations which I think we should be taking care of. We have very little sense of history. My idea is that everybody should be his own historian. Ife, through the institution of Oni, should try and create Center for Ife Studies. So the same way that the Benin have Center for Benin Studies, where anything about Ife published in any form can always be deposited, documented, and digitized. In Ilorin today, there is what is called the Center for Ilorin Studies. Anything about Ilorin, any scholar, any work about Ilorin, that is the business of that center. So in Ife, it can be an NGO, and if you have funding, international funding, we are making this recommendation as a part of our takeoff point. Oba Adesoji Aderemi was a lover of education. He was the person who played a very key role in mobilizing community to establish Oduduwa College in 1932. The fact of this may not be lost. The significance of it may be lost if we don't look at development of secondary education in Western Nigeria during that period. Ibadan Grammar School, in the old Oyo province, Ibadan Grammar School was the first to be established in 1913, followed later on by Ife, Oduduwa College, Ife, 1932. Ibadan Boys High School, 1938. Ilesha Grammar School, 1934. Ogbomoso only had its own school, 1950. Oyo Olivet High School, 1945. So when you look at that vision in 1932 for that college, and Oni donated generously to the funding and allocated 200 acres of land to the school. Beyond Oduduwa College, it was also the Oni who midwife the birth of the first medical institution and hospital in Ile-Ife. That is the Seventh-day Adventist school. By 1939, when the Adventists wanted to establish school, they were looking for places to establish, and they contacted the Oni. Oni immediately accepted, gave them several acres of land, 45 acres in particular, to establish the school, and donated the sum of $480 immediately. And when the school was converted to a military camp during the Second World War, Oni ensured that the school was later restored to its original site. So that school today is not just a medical institution, it's also an hospital that has impacted largely on the lives of Ife people that have been affiliated to University of Ife Teaching Hospital, now Obafemi Awolowo University. It's a great medical center today in the Adventist world. And that credit, the development of secondary education between 1932 to 1960, virtually all the schools that came to, even including Oribo Grammar School, so let us be able to give due credit to this man. The significance of Oba Adesoji Aderemi also lies in the fact that he was the first Christian Oba of Ile-Ife, the first educated Oba. All the Obas before him, they were educated in the traditional sense, but he was educated in the Western sense, and he made very good use of that education. Oba Adesoji Aderemi had all parameters, or met all criteria that an aspiring monarch should be. Born in 1889, he did not see the carnage of the 19th century Yoruba wars. He did not witness any part of it. He was born 3 years after the 1886 peace treaty that heralded the end of the war. From that period onward, he was not a live witness to that century that Professor Stephen Banji Akintoye referred to as Ife sad century. When we look at the situation of Ife, particularly up to 1893, 1894, we begin to appreciate the importance of Oba Adesoji Aderemi. Before 1894, Ife was in total ruins. The Oni elect that was elected at that time in 1880, up to 1894, that is Deni Onogbenla, could not be crowned until his death. It was at Okegbo. Majority of Ife citizens were then in Isoya too. So when you look at the state of Ile-Ife in the period before 1900, it was in a state of chaos. Oni Adelekan Olubuse the First, Eriogun, was formerly crowned, and during his reign, the particular year 1903, when he had to visit Lagos, Governor McGregor, attention began to be attracted to Ile-Ife. The institution of monarchy, the Ife monarchy, was seen as a great monarchy by the colonial elites. But 2 years after he left, it was formally crowned. That's 1932. Captain Ross was redeployed. Another resident commissioner for your province was put in place, Ward Price, who loved everything about Ife. So the point I'm trying to stress here is that Oba Adesoji Aderemi can be rightly described as the modernizer of the institution of monarchy, the man who began the process of restoration of pride and dignity, the man who practically rebuilt Ile-Ife from a huge village to a global city. Ile-Ife as a cradle of Yoruba race, that tendency, that fact was recrystallized and now in the historical consciousness of many people across the world. So Oba Adesoji Aderemi, I find it very difficult to talk about him in past tense because I know he still lives. Ever before he became Oba, he was a man of means, a man of substance. He worked in the railway section and he rose to the apex. He was a produce buyer, he was a transporter, and he owned one of the best cars of his generation that attracted the envy of Oni Ajagun Ademiluyi, that the man was trying to compete with him. And over flimsy allegation in a court presided over by Oni Ademiluyi, Oni was fined, was taken to court, and he was fined the sum of 25 pounds by that time because Oni Ademiluyi had a car, his son had a car, and Oni also had his own car. And anytime the Oni was, as a prince then, whenever I was passing through the city, of Ile-Ife, they will now be shouting, Oba yo, Oba yo, Oba Lola, Oni Lola. Between 1920 and 1930, Oni Adesoji Aderemi set the standard for anybody who will become the Oni of Ife. You must be a man of means. You must have job. You must be a man of character. You must be able to give. Between 1920 and 1930, Oni Adesoji Aderemi had used 3 cars, 1920 and 1930. one an open roof. In his lifetime, he was using Rolls Royce, which is now in the custody of Obafemi Awolowo University in their museum. In the last convocation, it was displayed. His successor, Oni Oba Okunade Sijuade Oluboshe II, also used Rolls Royce. And our Kabiyesi Oderisa now is also a proud owner of 2015 Rolls Royce. So that template is there, that the Kabiyesi must be regal, must be royal in truth, in fact, indeed. Because Kabiyi could see that anything we ask of you, certainly you will provide. Beyond that, I want to see Oba Adesoji Aderemi as a lover of culture, a lover of history. He was his own researcher. He was his own author. He participated in all the Yoruba conferences of Babas of that period. In 1954, he was at Ede, where he presented paper on Iwofa system in Ile-Ife. That conference was attended by the Ogoga of Ikere Ekiti, Oba Adegoriola, who also wrote on the political institution of Ogoga of Ikere Ekiti. Simi Adeto Eshelayi wrote on Yoruba drums and Yoruba music. All these were later published in the special edition of Odu, edited by Ulibaya, a German scholar. A note on the history of Ile-Ife was also published by Oba Adesoji Aderemi. But the reality of the fact of the situation is that he cultivated a core group of historians to be by his side, whether traditional historians and or professional historians. Chief Michael Ajayi Fabumi of blessed memory, who was later known as the Odole Atobashe of Ife, was his chief private secretary, who accompanied him to all the conferences of that period. But above all, who was his own historian too. Chief M.A. Fabumi was later given a doctorate degree at Obafemi Awolowo University in recognition of his contribution to historical scholarship. He's not just the author of Ife, the genesis of a race. He's the author of Ife Shrines, published by University of Ife Press, History of Christianity in Ile-Ife, Ijinle Ohun Enu Ijinle Ohun Ife, and a traditional history of Ile-Ife. Chief Fashogbon, Ademakiwa, and Kenyo was, these are other group of historians that the Oni cultivated. In terms of traditional history, it was also very close to my own teacher and mentor, or my teacher was very, very close to him. He learned a lot of history at his feet. That's Professor Isaac Adiagbo Akinjubin of blessed memory, the man who really inducted people like us into the art and science of history. By the testimony of all these people, whether academic or professional historians, teachers like Stephen Banji Akintoye, Ishola Olomola, Biodun Adediran, Tony Falola, Femi Omosini. When you read the book, Ife, the Cradle of a Race, published in 1992 by Sunday publisher, Port Harcourt, you will be able to see the standard of leadership.
Professor Yeweso, you have just 2 minutes to round off.
Thank you. You can see the standard of leadership provided by Kabiyesi. When you look at Ife Museum today, what you refer to as Ife Museum was a personal donation, started as a personal donation by Oni to the National Commission for Museum and Monuments. So all the artifacts the man collected over the years in the palace, he handed them over. And now you have in Ife National Museum, Ile-Ife. That was the measure of the man. The Kabiyesi was also a patron of Egbe Agbaotan, Egbe Agbaotan was a progressive union of educated elite in Ibadan. We had the likes of A.B. Akinyele, I.B. Akinyele, Busari, Obisesan, Aboderin, were all members. They accepted him as one of their own because he had very close association. He was in his lifetime very close to Oba Sikiru Awujale. He's the longest reigning monarch in Nigeria, 62. Yes. He was also close in his lifetime to Oba Ewi, Daniel.
In conclusion, sir.
In conclusion, Oba Adesoji Aderemi lived for others. He lived not only for his family, not for Ife, but for the global community. We will continue to immortalize him. We hold it a duty to immortalize his memory. The process has started from Dawn Commission. This should continue. And I want to extend profound appreciation to the DG Dawn Commission, who is also a product of University of Ife, or Obafemi Awolowo University, for considering this. So you can see the seed of yesteryears now have grown to, the mustard seed of yesteryear have grown to become not just Iroko with many branches. I thank you for the audience. Thank you for for the patience to listen to me.
Thank you very much, sir. We have enjoyed your presentation, and I'm sure people are already taking notes and then questions that they will forward to you before the end of the program. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you,
that
sir.
was Professor Shinyo Yewes, a professor of history and a product of the University of Ife, now Obafemi Awolowo University. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. I have seen online several Aderemis, 3, 4, 5 generations. And my mind went back to Genesis 22:17, that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed. I'm sure God referred to Oni Aderemi. So it's not going to be easy for us to start naming them one by one. I am extending our appreciation and congratulations to the Oni Aderemi Commonwealth. Congratulations for having a father who lived an exemplary life. Congratulations once again. Let me also quickly introduce some of our guests. We have all the way from Abeokuta, Olori Dr. Tokunbo Gbadebo, Olori Alake of Egbaland. You are welcome. We also have all the way from London, Honorable Alderman Irelu Lola Ajiun Ayorinde. Welcome. We have Professor Akomu Adebayo from Georgia, United States. We have Professor Olakunbi Olasope, former head of Classics Department, University of Ibadan. We have Professor Emmanuel Remi Ayede, head of Department, Political Science, University of Ibadan. And we have Dr. Bolu Folayan, academic and media consultant, and the current head of Department, Federal Polytechnic, Ilaro, Ogun State. And let us now proceed by calling on our next speaker to give us his thoughts. And I'll call on Professor Akin Alao, former head of the History Department and former director, Institute of Cultural Studies, Obafemi Awolowo University. Professor Alao, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, the moderator. For the opportunity to be a part of this program. And let me start on a note of appreciation to the Dawn Commission for which audience. From the onset, I'd like to pay homage to the Oni. I want to thank you for giving us this platform to discuss the lost of son of Yoruba land. We thank you for the opening comments. We thank you for intervention. And we thank you for providing the direction for us in discussing the life and times of Sir Adesoji Aderemi. I equally want to thank my friend and classmate, Professor Shion Oyeweso, for blazing a trail and giving us his thoughts about the activities associated with the man of the moment today, Sir Adesoji Aderemi. It is always a delight for historians to discuss and reconstruct the life and times of those who could be regarded as exerting unusual, enormous influence in the shaping of human lives and in the making of societies. In fact, some historians believe that history is just the biographies of great men. And Sir Adesoji Aderemi will just be one of these great men in the life of the Yoruba nation. He was a great man. He loomed large like a colossus over the Yoruba world for exactly half a century as the Ooni of Ife. It was a rare privilege for him as an individual to have taken that position in the life of a people and a civilization. Indeed, for the Yoruba, the institution of kings became the most flamboyant aspect of their socio-cultural and political system. And it has this enduring force. For a very long time, the institution has demonstrated enormous relevance in the management of human affairs and in the management of developments within the society. Some people had thought that the monarchical institution or the kingship institution will have been condemned to the dustbin of history, and that it was perhaps anachronistic. It was even thought at the time by the emerging politicians of Nigeria, those who had very little sense of history, that the monarchical institution will at best be museum pieces in another stretch of time. But unfortunately for them, their predictions have been thrashed in the sense that that institution has continued to demonstrate relevance. And today, we all seek after the institution of monarchy in Yoruba land. This institution had failed in other societies. I want to make particular reference to the former French colonies, where the French colonial administration actually dealt a fatal blow on the monarchical institution. However, it was not the case in Yoruba land because certain individuals stood for this institution and they were able to support the institution with their personal capacity and institutional capacity, and they were able to manage the changing faces of the monarchical institution. I like to share my thoughts with you today on how Sir Adesoji Aderemi, as Ooni of Ife, was able to enhance the prestige, the status, the grandiose, the relevance, and the efficiency of the monarchical institution. That it could be said of him that he was one major factor in the continued relevance of the monarchical institution in Africa. The monarchy has a role to play in the life of every citizen. And the elaborate, functional, and respectable court system has a particular role in defining the identity of individuals within a particular society. The monarchical institution in Yoruba land has succeeded in providing a center for cultural identity. And beyond this, it also could be regarded as the fulcrum for the establishment, the maintenance, the celebration of what Professor Olupona called civic religion. And we believe this so much that our religion will be difficult to separate from the monarchical institution. And as a result of this, we should recognize the role of certain individuals in making this possible, in strengthening the objective basis of the monarchical institution, in making it elaborate, in promoting its functionality, and making the court to be respectable. It goes beyond that. Some individuals like Sir Adesoji Aderemi, have also contributed to the consciousness that all Yorubas have about this monarchical institution, to the extent that the institution has become for us what we should protect, what we should defend, and what we should preserve for the next generation. My presentation will look at the role of Sir Adesoji Aderemi in this regard. By the time Oba Adesoji Aderemi became the Ooni of Ife, on 25th of September 1930, he was already a very rich man. And like Professor Yoruba said, he had established himself as the most eligible candidate for the position. In spite of the opposition from the reigning Oba Ajagun Adeniyi, he was committed, he was focused, and he had already organized himself and finances to assume the position of the Ooni of Ife. And one good thing about this, and the lesson that we can draw from this, is the issue of preparing for a particular exalted office. It should not come as a result of fortuitous or unreasonable reasons. Oba Adesoji Aderemi became the Ooni of Ife as a rich man. Beyond that, he was educated. He had given his time and resources to the acquisition of knowledge. Not just educated, but the acquisition of functional education. He had traveled wide. He had mingled with different sections of the society. He had established connections that could serve him after becoming the Ooni of Ife. He also had a vision. Sir Adesoji Aderemi was a visionary leader. He was a leader of men and a manager of resources. He focused attention on rebuilding the image, the status, the grandeur of the cradle of Yoruba civilization. We are all aware of what happened in the 19th century, that Yoruba land went through a period of internecine interstate wars. And this period actually affected the political structure of Yoruba land to the extent that it led to major demographic readjustments. And it also affected the Yoruba political system. It affected the Yoruba social relations and pattern of settlement. And by the time we came out of the Yoruba civil wars, after the conclusion of the treaty in 1886, Ife was, for all practical purposes, like a backyard town. It had lost the attraction of being the cradle of Yoruba race as a result of the difficulties of the 19th century. But by the time Oba Adesoji Aderemi became the Ooni in 1930, one of his major objectives was to rebuild Ife. And he personally committed himself to the rebuilding of Ife. He was decisive about this. And he went from house to house to encourage environmental sanitation, even before what we now call the war against indiscipline and environmental sanitation. Oba Adesoji Aderemi had started this in Ile-Ife, and he was also responsible for the building of major highways and streets in Ile-Ife. He encouraged his people to develop a very high sense of hygiene, and today we can see a reflection of that in Ile-Ife. He was also concerned about the position of Ile-Ife as a cradle of not just the Yoruba race, but of the Yoruba civilization, which is all inclusive. Oba Adesoji Aderemi was conscious of the fact that this civilization given to us by our forefathers must endure and must be passed down to the next generation. It was therefore, in the language of Chief Obafemi Awolowo, a radical traditionalist. He was radical in the sense that he wanted change, but he wanted change within the ambit of traditions. And therefore, as the Ooni of Ife, he was able to manage change and he was able to bequeath to Ife the concept of preservation of their culture, of what Yoruba should be for the next generation. It was a question of continuity and change, and he was able to manage the different phases of change and development of the Yoruba civilization. By being educated, he was able to hold his own against the exactions of colonial masters. We all will remember the high-handedness of colonial administrators, especially with their experience in the northern part of the country. They had wanted to ride roughshod over virtually everybody in the colonized estates. But because Obadesoji Aderemi was educated, because he was forthright, because he knew where he was going, and because he knew the treachery that is involved in colonial administration, he was able to hold his own against them. For instance, throughout the life of the annual conferences of chiefs of the Western provinces, he was always in charge, and he was always providing direction for the discussion of matters that were in the best interest of the Yoruba race. So Adesoji Aderemi was a committed member and a strong member, and he was able to establish his relevance over the conduct of the annual conferences. And at a point in time, the essence of the conferences, and they wanted to make it just an opportunity for kings to meet ceremonially and exchange pleasantries without making any input into development agenda. But Obadesoji Aderemi resisted this, and in 1938, he canvassed for an enhanced status for the Yoruba kings by committing the colonial administrators to certain high standards. He challenged them that there should be a need for ranking amongst the Yoruba people, the Yoruba Obas, especially those who were representative of the old traditional order as left behind by Oduduwa. He wanted them to discuss the issue of precedence so that each Oba will know his relationship with other Obas. And this was vehemently opposed by the colonial administrators because of their preference for one section or the other. But in spite of this, Obadesoji Aderemi was decisive in his request for a prestigious rule for Yoruba Obas, irrespective of where they're coming from. He had hoped that the colonial administrators would take the bull by the horn and look at the issue of precedence amongst the Yoruba Oba. And he believed that it would be popular because, as the Oni of Ife, many other Yorubas in Yoruba land referred to him as father, and it became a very important part of discussion. But unfortunately, the colonial administrators, even at the highest level, had their way, and that matter was never discussed. But even in spite of this, he was able to impose himself even on the conference. He had a special place to sit, always directly. He was held in very high esteem by the brother Obas and by the colonial administrators. He was also a modernizing Oba. He used the times to enhance the status of the monarchy. And like my colleague said about him, Sir Adesoji Aderemi built the first private grammar school in Nigeria. And that's an additional point. Because Oduduwa College, which was established in 1932, was virtually a private grammar school supported by Obadesoji Aderemi, inspired by him, maintained by him, and managed by him. It was like a limited liability company establishing a school. unlike what happened in other places, where schools were built as a result of missionary efforts, as a result of community efforts, where members of a particular community will come together to ask for a school and to build such schools. But Oduduwa College started as a private grammar school, and that is to the glory and to the commendation of Sir Adesoji Aderemi. Apart from building this secondary school, he was visionary. He knew where he was going, and he wanted something that will endure. And he had built into it some what will sustain the college as a post-primary institution. He therefore was responsible for the establishment of 2 primary schools that will feed the secondary school. The early primary school in Ife and in Petimodu were products of his contribution to education. His commitment to education was total and uncompromising. And throughout, he sustained his interest in Oduduwa College and made Oduduwa College a reference college for the better part of his reign. Sir Adesoji Aderemi also was in a position to check the excesses of minor colonial administrators. He was many light years ahead of many of them, and he was able to discuss with them one-on-one and to even point out directions to them. In his management of crisis, the colonial administrators looked up to him because he was able to provide leadership. And his court was such that justice was available, not to the highest bidder, but on the basis of what is right and what is necessary for the development of the society. During one of their conferences, the Abbas conferences in the Western provinces, the one held in Abeokuta in 1940, Oba Adesoji was very much interested in providing uniform standard for the administration and management of native authorities. Because he was the sole native authority, but he wanted uniformity in Yoruba land. And he wanted Yoruba traditions, Yoruba customs, Yoruba attitude, and Yoruba understanding of social relations to determine so many things, and not to allow the imported British style to influence and degrade aspects of Yoruba culture. He therefore, at this very important meeting, called for a discussion of uniformity in the conduct of matrimonial cases. One would have thought that why matrimonial cases? But when you look at the circumstances of that period, you will discover that it was an important case. It was an important thing because divorce was gradually being introduced. And the Oba knew that it could be the
Professor Alao, 2 more minutes, please.
Wow. Thank you, the moderator. The Kabiyesi was also an industrialist. As far back as 1941, he had suggested to the conference the establishment of industrial companies, what he called industrial companies, to look at the possibility of establishing cotton mills, paper manufacturing companies, salt making, and cement production sites in order to solve the problem of youth unemployment. And I'm happy that the present Kabiyesi, the Oni, is also into this direction, looking at the welfare of the youth and meeting them at the point of their need. In 1944, the Oni was so far-sighted to the extent that he had suggested the launch of a newspaper by the chiefs of the Western provinces. When I saw this, I was just thinking, who could have given this man this kind of vision to be looking at the possibility of establishing a newspaper that will serve as the organ through which the views of the Obas will be heard. And it was meant to preserve and enhance the status of traditional rulers in Yoruba land. He was never beholden to the colonial administrators.
In conclusion.
In conclusion.
In conclusion, sir. In conclusion.
Okay. Maybe I'll have time later on to look at what he did as a radical traditionalist and how he worked with the colonial establishment, with the emergent political class, the military, and how he managed the affairs of the Oyo State Council of Obas, a permanent chairman until he died in 1980. I want to thank you for your attention, please. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Akinalao, former head of the History Department and former director of the Institute of Cultural Studies, Obafemi Awolowo University. Thank you very much. Please reserve your questions and comments for him. We are going to open the floor for everyone at the end of the presentations. Before I also call on the next person, let me quickly introduce some of our distinguished participants. Today we have amongst us Professor Margaret Adebisi Shoun, distinguished botanist and environmental archaeologist. You are welcome. We also have Professor Ayodeji, distinguished Professor Ayodeji Olukoju, former Vice Chancellor of Caleb University. We have Professor Yeni Yeladepo with us. We also welcome Professor Oluwatoyin Odepo, Dean of Pharmacy, University of Ibadan. Professor Rashid Ajetumobi, Dean of Arts, Taisholari University of Education. Dr. Sekinat Koladeroju, Head of History, Koladaisi University. Distinguished Professor Adele Jinod, distinguished academic and Professor of Political Science. You are welcome. No. We also witnessed from the UK, Honorable Bola Lawal, Ogbeni Matthew Ladimeji. Thank you very much. We'll introduce some other people after the next presentation. So right now we go to Professor Abimbola Adesoji, former head of the Department of History of Obafemi Awolowo University. Professor Adesoji, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, sir. Permit me to stand on the existing protocol. I want to appreciate most sincerely His Imperial Majesty, the Royal Host of this August gathering, His Imperial Majesty, Oba Adeyeye Nitungusi, the second, the Ooni of Ife, and other royal rulers present, Kabiyesi Adedokan Bolarin Jarangan Fokela, patron of history. I also want to appreciate especially my teachers and mentors in the house, starting with the moderator, Professor Tayo Adeshina, Professor Akinalao, Professor Sheyan Yoweso, Professor Tunde Babawale. They remain my teachers and mentors today, and I consider it a great privilege to stand on this same virtual platform with you to offer some thought on the life and times of Obasa Adesoji Tadeniawo Aderemi, the Ooni of Ife, 1930 to 1980. Kabiyesi Ooni Adesoji Aderemi is known all over the world, was known all over the world. Professor Oyewese was saying it's difficult to talk in the past about Ooni Adesoji Aderemi. But his charity started from home. He started from his base at Ife because he was first and foremost Ooni of Ife. Before he became the Ooni of Yoruba, and before he became like Kabiyesi, His Imperial Majesty noted, the Ooni of Yorubas in diaspora and Ooni of the world. Ooni Adesoji Aderemi scored a number of firsts, just like it's been noted. He was the first literate king, the literate Ooni of Ife. He was the first governor, not only in Nigeria, but in the British Empire and in the Commonwealth. And we can begin to name a number of firsts that he recorded. But all this started from his base at Ife. When we peruse the life and times of Ooni Adesoji Aderemi, what came out clearly is the fact that, just like it's been noted, he was a radical, revolutionary traditionalist. At the same time, he was a modernist. He was He was not only a believer in change, he was a driver of change, he was an agent of change. And so we saw change. Of course, his reign coincided with a time in the history of Yoruba land and Nigeria that was going through a period of transition. Yoruba land was going through a period of transition. If Ile-Ife was going through a period of transition, Nigeria was going through a period of transition in virtually all ramifications. And we saw Oni, Adesoji, Aderemi key into these changes and driving the change. Can I continue?
Please unmute. Sorry, mute your microphones. Yeah, please. Okay, please continue. Continue, please. Can't hear you.
How about it now? Hello? Hello?
Continue, sir.
Okay. So he responded to the change of the period. And just like I was saying, his charity started from home. So he wake up in the morning, go to an area that is very dirty, and he go and sit down. They will offer him seat and say, if you believe that what this area is not it, join me to take care of this place. And you gather men who will clear the dunghills. And one after the other, he succeeded in clearing the dunghills that littered nooks and crannies of Ife. So he brought change. And then it was not surprising that was the beginning of transformation of Ile-Ife. And so what is clear in history that Adesoji Aderemi not only drove change, not only believed in change, he personified change. He was the bridge between the ancient and the modern, and he pursued the agenda of change at the particular time when his community and the nation was going through tremendous socio-political transformation. We can fast forward to 1960s when the idea of the University of Ife was mooted, just like Professor Yoruba has noted. You see, he was already a governor. And when some traditional rulers started grumbling, how can someone be governor and the university will be taken to his domain again? He offered to resign as governor so that the university could come to his community. In other words, he was not just interested in himself alone. He was interested in the development of his community. In fact, it took the intervention of different political leaders. Chief Awolowo had to call Chief Akintola. Oh, Adesoji is on his way to Ife. He has said he was leaving office, he wants to resign, so that you will not use the idea of the fact that he was a governor to prevent his community from enjoying the benefit of having the university sited in his community. And that is a king who responded to change during his era. And so from this period, we saw that at different stages, he promoted change, he drove change. By the time, like it's been noted, by the time he was to become, he became king. He was crowned in 1930. In 1928, Professor West talked about the incident that happened. And that confirmed one thing, that even before he became king, it was already clear that he was a king. He had the mien of a king. He carried himself as a king. And that was why he was known as Atoba Tele Koye Tode, a wealthy-like prince, even before he became king. Atoba Tele Koye Tode. And that was why, of the 3 cars that existed in Ife during this period, he was a proud owner of the 3rd one. The first one owned by the Oni Ajagun, the second one owned by his son, Prince Adeyemi Ademiluyi, and the 3rd one owned by Oni Adesoji Aderemi. And so he became so popular, and he became the envy of people, that he was found guilty by the native court, and he was sentenced to £25 fine, which he paid. So these were the things that characterized, and of course, even though he was born into greatness, he also worked hard. He was dignified, he was diligent, and so he did not just wait and say, well, after all, I'm a prince, so one day I'll become a king and things will fall into places. He dabbled into virtually everything that is legal. In transport business, cocoa produce, but from being a cocoa produce clerk, he became an agent, he became a factor, and eventually he became cocoa produce merchant himself. And in preparing himself for leadership, we saw Oni Adesoji Aderemi getting involved in several associations, like Professor West made mention of. Even in Ile-Ife, at his base, he became the first secretary of Ile-Ife Progressive Union. And it was born out of the fact that he felt that he must first and foremost contribute to the growth of his community. And so when he became the Oba in 1930, recall I said that he was the first literate Oba, but he did not forget tradition. As early as 1931, the first year of his reign, one of the first letters he wrote to the colonial government was that his salary should be increased. What was the argument? The argument was that his salary of £1,000 per annum was not enough, that there were about 400 idols in Ife, and he as the patron must pacify them. He was the one that would give money to the priest to pacify them. So there was the need to make resources available to pacify them. One would wonder, why would a literate king who had traveled far and wide, who was educated, would be asking that the gods should be placated? That was because even though he was a modernist, he had imbibed modernist ideas, he did not forget his root and his tradition. And so we saw Oni Adesoji Aderemi at every level of his involvement, showing that he was a humanist, he was a modernist, he was interested in the progress and development of his community. And so I also want to point out that the fact that as at the time Oni Aderemi became the Oba in 1930, the history has been so written that has given preference to Oyo in the history of Yoruba land, particularly during the tenure of the residence, or during the residency of Captain C. Ross. But we saw with the emergence of H.L. World Prize that the pendulums swung towards Ife, and that must have been due to the tenacity, to the level of education, and the kind of leadership that Oni Adesoji Aderemi provided, such that by 1938, the second conference of Obas and Chiefs that were held in Yoruba land was held at Ife. The first one held in Oyo. What is popularly believed in history was that as at the time, because of the fact that Oyo had the privilege of being known to the colonialists because of the pervasive influence of the Alafin in the aftermath of the Civil War and some other development, the history has been so presented that Oni Alaafin was a political leader in Yoruba land, where Oni was a spiritual leader, and people still bandied that around. But we saw the table turning, we saw the pendulum swinging with the emergence of Oni Adesoji Aderemi, and we saw H.L. World Prize coming to understand the person of Oni Aderemi and to understand the exalted stool that Oni Aderemi occupied. And when we look at his involvement in politics, we will discover that he did not just get involved in politics because it was the norm, because it was the vote. He got involved in politics on principle. And so from his involvement by virtue of the office he held as the Ooni of Ife, as the head of the native court, or with the constitution of the sole native authority, he also he was a member of the House of Assembly when the House of Assembly was created following the introduction of the Richard Constitution. And we saw that with the Macpherson Constitution of 1951, when the House of Chiefs was created, he became a member and the permanent chairman, and he held this position until 1960 when he became the governor. So, and what did he do at that level? He continued with propagating the ideas that he believed. Much of them have been discussed by Professor Alao. It was on the platform of the fact that he was a member of the House of Chiefs that he was part of the delegate that went to Britain in 1948. And so his belief was that the House of Chiefs that was created with the enactment of the Macpherson Constitution of 1951 provided traditional opportunity to contribute to the development in Yoruba land, in their domain, and the evolving change in Nigeria at that particular time. And what else do we see? When we look at his involvement with Action Group, Egbe Omodudua, first and foremost, involvement, we saw that it was not based on political correctness. It was based on principle. In fact, the testimony of Chief Abafemi Awolowo about Ooni Adesoji Aderemi was that you have to sit down with him and convince him. He must be convinced about a particular matter. And once he is convinced about that matter, you can be sure that he was going to run with that vision. And so part of the tribute that Chief Awolowo paid to him was that he was a leader that stood by Egbe Omodudua, that stood by the Yoruba nation, that stood by the Action Group during this period. And so, even though he had these challenges because history is a balanced project. Right from the period is problem with Egbe Omo Ibile Ife, beginning from 1947-48, with the misunderstanding of his role in the Action Group crisis of 1960. What we also saw play out was not political correctness, but decisions based on principle. Like without holding brief for...
Professor, 2 minutes.
Wow.
2 minutes.
Well, Ooni Adesoji Aderemi was a beneficiary of change. People have, part of the what commentaries and comment was that he started on a native court that tried leaders, even when it was part of the issue. But this was a time when the society was going through a period of change, and he only responded to the change at that particular time. He was the chairman, he was the president of the native authority, and he could not have done otherwise, even though he had to see it on the case of those who are alleging. And when you look at the Action Group crisis of 1960s, you will discover that despite the pressure mounted by the Action Group, despite the pressure mounted by the Premier, S.L. Akintola, despite the pressure mounted by Chief Awolowo, he was a faithful party member, but he insisted that things must be done on the basis of legality. And so he dissolved the House of Assembly on the basis of the fact that there were signatories that were saying that, well, we don't want the Premier to continue in office. In a nutshell, what we see from the lifetime of Sir Tadenikawo Aderemi was that the interest of the people must be served. The interest of the nation must be served. Where you have power, you must use your power well, and the power must be used to serve humanity, not just to achieve vainglory. Thank you, love. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Adesoji. We are grateful. I'm sure you are also going to get some questions and comments at the end of the program. Please get ready to entertain some. Thank you very much. Well, before I bring on the next speaker, let me also quickly recognize some of our distinguished guests. Professor Lufunke Adeboye, the Dean of Arts, University of Lagos. Dr. Tolu Ifedaya, Elizabeth University. Professor Rashid Ajetumobi, Dean of Arts, Taisolani, University of Education. We have Professor Ibikunle Tijani, Director CEMGS, National Open University of Nigeria. Then, of course, we are honored to welcome Honorable Babajide Omoworare, Special Advisor to the President on National Assembly Matters, and of course, a grandson of Oni Adiremi. Here with us today, I'm also happy to inform you, is Bashorun Dele Momodu, publisher of Ovation. You're welcome, sir. The AWE exponent that we listen to is a 22-year-old graduate of Yoruba from UI, Omodayo Oluwadare. Thank you very much. Then all the way from the UK, we have Dr. Gerardo Serra, Manchester University Department of History. Then Dr. Dapper Thomas, Department of History, Lagos State University. And we're also happy to have Dr. Ademola Dada, CMD, Federal Medical Center, Ibutemeta, Lagos. You are all welcome. So let me go to the next speaker now, Professor Tunde Babawale, former director of CBAC. Professor Babawale, you are welcome, sir. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. Let me start by expressing my appreciation to His Royal Majesty, the Oni of Ife, Oba Eniola Adeogun Ojaja II, for setting the pace and the tone for today's discussion. I'd also like to thank all the KBACs that are present on this forum, and as well as our very senior colleagues that are also taking part in this discourse. My task is to also extend my appreciation to Don for extending the invitation to me. I feel it's an honor and I take it as such. Let me proceed by saying that my perspective will be to look at the contributions of Oni Aderemi Tadeniawo from the perspective of legacies that he has left in politics and governance. A lot has been said about his historical contributions, about his activities in business. Some references have also been made to his involvement in politics, but this is exactly the spot that I want to zero my contribution on. Let me start by saying that, as Karl Marx said in one of his writings, men make their own history, but they do not make such history as they please. Neither do they make it under circumstances that they select, but rather they make history under circumstances that are already in existence. By this, I mean that heroes like the Oni of Ife that we are talking about today do make their contributions based also on the circumstances of the time in which they emerged. In this particular instance, the circumstance of the immediate aftermath of Yoruba Civil War was the period that Oni of Ife was born. Secondly, he was also growing up in the period when nationalist activities had become very intense, and later, the politics of independence. These were some of the factors and circumstances that shaped his contribution. For me, Oni Aderemi was one of the greatest African monarchs of the 20th century. And of course, unarguably, one of the longest reigning traditional rulers of that era. There is no question about the fact that he was a nationalist to the core and one of the founding fathers of modern Nigeria. my friend and colleague who had spoken earlier, have correctly referred to him as the modernizer of Ife Kingdom, and I agree with that. Of course, this could be found in the manner in which he sought after education and got himself educated, at least through Western education. He was also a man that introduced very significant and lasting changes to virtually all sectors of the society within his own community. A lot has been said about his love for education. My reading of the achievement of this great monarch of our time is that he feels that education provides the bedrock for development. He himself, having struggled to acquire education as an individual personally, he feels that there is a need for his community to have the best that Western education could offer. And what did he do? He encouraged the establishment of schools and colleges, up to the fact that even a tertiary institution like the University of Ife, like others have said, he facilitated the setting up of that university in Ile-Ife. He's a man who also believed in developmental politics. As I said, he was active in politics from the days of nationalism. He was a man that participated in the nationalist struggle, and this participation, in my view, put him in very good stead to play a prominent role in pre- and post-independence politics of Nigeria. A lot has been said about his involvement in the constitutional conferences, especially the one starting from 1948. He had been a member of the Legislative Council and later became the first Black African to be appointed governor in a British colony. That in itself is an achievement that is unparalleled. Before this time, he had been a member of the House of Assembly between 1946 and 1951. I need not remind us that within the period that Ooni of Ife was on the throne, Ile-Ife and its environs experienced several developmental projects and made gigantic developmental strides. For example, we had during this period the provision of so many amenities. Don't forget, as had been said, Ife was in need of development at this period. That was one of the circumstances that determined what he was going to do. For instance, he saw that Ife needed to have amenities like postal agencies. He facilitated the establishment of such in 1931. You had a magistrate court in 1943. His love and passion for education influenced him into bringing or establishing a library in Ife in 1943, and also ensured that you had a high court in 1969, as well as attracting electricity to the city as far back as 1955. As I said before, Oba Aderemi was a nationalist of no mean repute. He, at a point, was one of those who established the great Egbeomo Oduduwa, as we know, which later metamorphosed into the Action Group. And of course, at this time, for a traditional ruler to be involved at this level was something that was also new and highly commendable. Let me go further to say that Oba Adesoji Aderemi was a man that stood in a class of his own. We have talked about the foundation of Oduduwa College as far back as 1932. We have also talked about the foundation of Ife Central School in 1934, as well as the Origbo Central School in 1938. And as you know, Oduduwa College remained the only secondary school in Ife until 1955, about the earliest in Nigeria, as Professor Akinlao pointed out. Oba Aderemi, as I said, used his vantage position to attract the University of Ife to his domain in 1962. And we all know what impact that has had on the community. I must say that bringing electricity, pipe-borne water, telephone services to the community is a contribution that helped in transforming Ife from a state that needed development to one that had become, that you can fairly refer to as modern. Having talked about that, I need us to take a look at the way Obadesoji Aderemi played his politics. Yes, he was involved in the Egbe Omo Oduduwa. He was a nationalist and was involved in nationalism. But one important thing that we need to note, when he was made minister without portfolio, you will recall that there was a crisis. He noticed that at that time, when the motion for independence was moved in 1953 by Anthony Nauro in Parliament, and he noticed that the British were for dragging over this demand, he, along with others, resigned from the cabinet. That is a lesson for today's politicians, that if your politics is driven by principle, it is that principle that will drive your continued occupation of that office. Once the ovation is no longer there and the purpose is no longer served, it is better to call it a day. Again, from his younger days, as people pointed out earlier, he had taken part in political organizations that were established in the community for the purpose not just of the development of Ife, but the development of Yoruba land, such as his involvement in the Egba that people have talked about, his involvement in the Ife Improvement Union, had shown clearly that this man was marked for greatness. He had earlier, as I said, he resigned as minister because the British attempted to delay Nigerian independence. As governor, he was one of those who made efforts to make peace within the then ruling party, Action Group, when crisis started to brew within the party. Unfortunately, as I can say, it was the failure of his mediatory effort, along with that of others, that actually prepared the ground for his removal as governor, the imposition of the state of emergency, and eventually the crisis in the Western region that later snowballed into a coup d'etat and the truncation of democracy in Nigeria. This is a modernizing traditional ruler whose contributions to the community, like President Shion also said, also extended beyond the level of provision of pipe-borne water, provision of electricity, postal services, even to the preservation and promotion of culture. Although he was a Christian monarch, highly educated, trained in the Western, in the tradition of Western education, yet he was a lover of culture. The first museum in Ife that was established due to the effort, personal effort, of the late Oni of Ife, Adesoji Aderemi. And it is then clear that with the role he played in promoting culture and tradition, he also, by extension, encouraged tourism through this promotion of culture and cultural products. A number of visitors from far and wide began to pay visits to Ile-Ife in order to see this man whose politics has transcended the local, the regional, the national to the international level. We will recall that apart from participating in the first conference in London in 1948, several other constitutional conferences that were held, Oni of Ife, Oba Aderemi participated in those conferences. This is to show that this was a modernizing monarch who had an idea of what his society required in terms of development and was prepared to contribute his own quota to the development of that society. I have talked about his involvement in education at the time and how this was purposely done with the objective of using that at the fulcrum for development in the city. And of course, we have seen the impact today on the number of professionals that have emerged from that community, be they lawyers, economists, academics, and all of them. I think that history will always remember the Oni of Ife for these contributions, the late Oni of Ife, Obadesoji Aderemi, for this contribution that he had made to transform Ife from the kind of community that it was to a modern society, which now stands tall in the midst of communities in Nigeria and not just in Yoruba land alone. Of course, there has been a lot that has been said about his chairmanship, the permanent chairmanship of the Yoruba Council of Obas. He introduced a lot of changes into the forum and laid a good example for other traditional rulers. I am personally of the opinion that this great monarch is one man who has brought pride, not just to Ile-Ife and Nigeria, but also to Africa. If we look at the fact that when the Queen Elizabeth II was to be coronated, he was the one that led the Nigerian delegation to that ceremony. That shows that he was highly regarded, not just in Nigeria, but also across the world. And we've seen how, to a large extent, his position and his tenure of office as governor was marked by the respect that people have for traditional institutions. Until the crisis of 1962, which came not due to any fault of his, but because of the political situation of the period. Of course, I cannot but remember that when you talk in terms of development, after education, you talk of provision of healthcare and medical services. The late Oni of Ife Oba Adesoji Aderemi's personal effort in ensuring the establishment of the Seventh-day Adventist Hospital in 1944 was something to commend. And that hospital still stands there today and had become one of the best within that part of Nigeria. Mention was made of his foray into establishing a newspaper. This is something that also intrigues me, because you had a man who occupied this traditional position, also seeing the role that journalism and the media can play in the development of society, in communicating to the people at the grassroots. And with Obafemi Awolowo, he established a newspaper that was titled The New Times of Nigeria in 1947. It is interesting to note that it is this same New Times for Nigeria that was to later give back to the Nigerian Tribune in 1948. And we all know the position of Nigerian Tribune in the media today in Nigeria. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I am convinced that the legacies of Oba Adesoji Aderemi in politics and governance in Nigeria have been so monumental that it will not be out of place to talk about the center in the nature of what Oyeweto said. But I'm thinking more of a center that is going to be devoted to education, to philosophy, to governance in his memory, and we name it after him. I think a lot of his contributions will be unearthed by more serious researches, such that those who occupy traditional positions today will have a lot to learn, that with that position comes a huge responsibility. And that huge responsibility must be accompanied by a great sense of commitment and devotion to the cause of the people and the cause of the development of the society. I am personally intrigued by the fact that Oni of Ife contributions, the late Oni of Ife, Oba Adesoji Aderemi's contributions to education, to the provision of social services, to bringing the community together, have provided samples for us that we can hand over to successive traditional rulers in Nigeria today to take a lesson from. I know a few are doing that, but many are not. And we want to recommend his own type of vision and worldview to them, so that we can have a new Nigeria where the traditional institutions will be associated with something positive and not negative backlash, as we witnessed in some very unfortunate circumstances today. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I am going to, on this note, round up by saying that Oba Adesoji Aderemi's many monumental changes that he brought into Ile-Ife community, into the politics of Nigeria, into governance within his own community, are things that must be preserved by all of us, and to which all those who aspire to leadership must learn a thing or two from. I want to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Tunde Babawale, Professor of Political Science and former Director of CBAC. Thank you very much, sir. Well, we also hope you have questions and comments for him later on. We appreciate you, sir. Before I throw the floor open for your comments and questions, let me quickly introduce Olori Oladun Nishijuade. You're welcome. Then we also have Dr. Adeola Falaye of the Obafemi Awolowo University, a scholar and cultural enthusiast. You're welcome. And we have with us Mrs. Aderinola Richardson, author of Nigeria in Transition, biography of Sir Adesoji Aderemidi Ooni of Ife, 1930 to 1980. As they say in Nollywood, grab your copies now. Then let me also, because in history we love the idea of footnotes. Before I throw the floor open to everyone, let me bring on Basharundele Momodu to sort of give us a footnote to all we have said. Thank you, sir. Please, Basharundele Momodu, you have the floor.
Okay, can you hear me now, please?
Yes, please go ahead.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Well, I'm giving you only 2 minutes because it's a footnote.
No problem at all. I just want to say how delighted I am to join this forum. This is very, very powerful. Listening to all the distinguished speakers have been extremely inspired today. And the greatness of Yoruba land is not in contention at all. I was born in Ile-Ife in 1960, and I did all my education, primary, secondary, first degree, second degree, even national service, everything in Ile-Ife. So nobody is more Ife than me. My father had migrated from Edo State. Sorry, I didn't know my phone was going to be making noise. Just a minute. Yeah. So, yes.
Please mute everyone. Mute everyone.
Yeah. So my father had migrated from the old Midwest to Ile-Ife, and I was told he must have settled in Ife from about 1944. There must have been something in Obaderemi that attracted so many non-Yoruba people to Ile-Ife. I knew of so many Igbo people, even in my church, the church of Aladura in Ife. And they were pastors and they were Igbos. Even during the Civil War, they traveled and came back and met everything they left behind intact. But the most essential one is that I also don't know what was in Ife during his reign that created journalists out of Ife. The late the Delegiwa's father worked in the palace. I think it was in the laundry department in the palace. My own father worked in the public works department, PWD, and my mother had a shop across the palace. But of course, I became friends with some of the Aderemis, and I was welcomed as a member of the family. We also had my old schoolmate, Dele Agekame, who was in Tel and Newswatch magazines at a time. His father was working as a chef in the palace of the Oni. And nobody treated us like strangers. Everybody lived peacefully. I remember that even Ife and Mudakeke, nobody knew the difference. I once had an uncle, Chief Oyemade, who was chairman of the local government, a Mudakeke man, and his office was right in the palace, in front of Ilela. You know, at that time, there was no difference whatsoever. The Oloye days, the Oloje days, everybody, we all lived like we are all Ife. Nobody will say, I'm from Odaike, I'm from Ife. So for me, when we talk about the issue of unity, that was something that he achieved. And that's why his reign was peaceful for about 50 years. And today we're celebrating him. So because of time, I will leave it at that. I just wanted to speak about an aspect that I don't think we've touched upon, and that is that he promoted peace. He even married from Mudakeke at that time. So thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Well, thank you very much, sir. We appreciate your intervention. I was expecting you to give us a chapter, not a footnote, but thank you for making it a footnote. Thank you very much. Now, before I also open the floor, let me also introduce Emeritus Professor Ayo Bangbushi, our father. You are welcome, sir. Okay, the floor is open. Some of you may, by show of hands, indicate whether you want to make a comment or ask a question, but make it very brief. So you can also post your questions on the chat box. We can pick them from there. But the floor is open now. Let's entertain your questions and comments. Well, the administrator, please unmute whoever has a show of hands so that he or she can comment or ask questions. Okay, Kabiyesi Oba Adedokun, please unmute him. Unmute Kabiyesi, please.
Hello.
Okay, yes.
Yes, I commend the Dawn Commission for this great assemblage of great men and women of our land all over the world to celebrate an icon, 40 years. And to a lot of people now, they think that the institution that I represent now, the great institution of Obashi, is anachronistic. But thank God to Papa Adesoji Aderemi that the institution is mobile. The institution can be used to accomplish great deeds for our people in all spheres of human endeavor. That some of us now find ourselves on the throne is as a result of the accomplishment of that great man, that foresighted monarch. And I always call him the greatest, Oba Adesoji Tadenikawo Aderemi. The year that he joined our ancestors was the year I graduated from Ife. In terms of accomplishment, that has been enumerated by scholars here. And that is what some of us are now trying to do on the throne. The institution, from the analysis of scholars, is to tell us that it's a major institution to develop our people in all spheres of human endeavor. And I commend your effort, the Dawn Commission, and all the scholars that have enumerated the great deeds of that great monarch, Oni Tadenikawo Adesoji Aderemi. And conclusively, and I always tell a few of my friends, I spoke with my friend Damola Aderemi yesterday, Prince, that we should, and we've touched it today, that in terms of monuments, in terms of his papers, in terms of all that he stood for, I think something novel, something germane must come out of this discourse, that an institution in remembrance of this great monarch must be immediately instituted. I thank you. I commend your effort. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kabiyesi. Adepelorio. Sir. Okay. Yes, please unmute the microphone for Vincent Ibikunle, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tokumbo Ibikunle, although my English name is Vincent, and I'm calling from England. I want to say this initiative is a very welcome development for anyone who has a pride in being called a son of the Yoruba land. And I want to thank God that I just stumbled onto this something yesterday, and I made up my mind that I had to be part of this. And I want to thank God for some of my classmates who have been on this forum today, people like Professor Shion Oyeweso, who are in Ife together, Professor Akin Alao, Bashorun Dele Momodu. We were all of the 78-82 set in Ife. And we were lucky, we were privileged to meet Baba on the throne. And I've been privileged to have met some of his children over the years. From my secondary school in Christ School, some of his children came to Christ School, and some of them we met after we left Ife, and senior ones to us, and so on. So I want to thank God for his legacy, and I want to thank God for the Dawn Commission for trying to reestablish the authenticity of the legacy of the Yoruba race. Brethren, I always tell people that I thank my God that I was born into the Yoruba race. For me, that is the best race on earth. A race that has culture, a race that has respect, a race that has honor. All these Baba Aderemi embodied in his lifetime, and that is the legacy we are still enjoying till today. My admonition to the Dawn Commission is that please do not stop at this conference today. I would encourage people like Bashorun Dele Momodu to help us, those in the journal, those who are journalists, to help us take this thing to the international fora. Let these things continue like this so that our children, especially those of us who are in diaspora, so that they can be proud of our legacies. And we have to teach this language, this culture to our children and grandchildren. It must not die in our generation. And we must also please appeal to our leaders in Nigeria, especially the Yoruba land, Yoruba politicians, to now take the bull by the horn and come up with a strategy to ensure that we continue to play a leading role in the advancement of that nation. I don't want to go into politics, but we cannot separate a human being from politics. Please, we need to help Nigeria to make sure that it does not go down the drain. And I also want to appreciate our Kabiyesi, the Oni of Ife, for his role since he became the Oni in unifying the Yorubas all over the world. The Lord will honor you, sir, and bless you, Emma Pefunwasa. And also to my big brother, the Oba Adedokun, Oba Dokun Abolari, was our senior in Ife. He was 2 years ahead of us. Kabiyesi, God bless you, sir. Nice to see you once again. And I want to say thank you to all the great men and women on this forum. And I want to say we are blessed and we are privileged to be part of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. You nearly turned this into University of Ife imperialism, although I am also an alumnus. Thank you very much. Okay, please, next person. A show of hands or electronic indicator. Any other person? Okay, please. I didn't know. Unmute.
Yeah. Then there's a Boyega Olorunfemi also waving his hands. Then Mrs. Adirinola Richardson, she's raising her hands as well.
Oh yes, please. I am the DG. Perhaps because you have a global view, you could please take over from there.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So
let me.
Okay.
I didn't know. Adeboye first.
Yeah.
Please unmute. I didn't know. Adeboye first. We are waiting. Administrator. I didn't know. Adeboye.
Unmute Adeniro Adeboye. Look for those that you have to mute. Follow it. Yeah. Okay. Adeniro Adeboye, please carry on, sir.
No, it's still.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, can we go to the next person? We might go. let's go to Aderinola Richardson, please. Aderinola Richardson.
Okay, I think Adenina Adeboye is ready now.
Ah, okay.
Ṣé ẹ gbọ́ mi?
We can hear you, sir. We can hear you, sir.
Ẹ ṣé púpọ̀. Mo júbà Aláyélúwà Ọba Adéyẹyè Ọọ̀ni of Ifẹ̀ àti gbogbo àwọn kábíyèsí tí ó bá wa pé. Orúkọ mi Adéníran Adébóyè láti Baltimore, Maryland ni mo ti ń pè. Inú mi dùn láti sọ fún yín pé Ọọ̀ni Adésọjí Adérẹ̀mí ó ní alátúnṣe fún gbogbo ènìyàn dúdú. Nítorí pé bí a wà ní Odùduwà College ní o àbí Government College gbogbo wa la ṣe mathematics. Ìyàtọ̀ wà láàrin addition àti substitution. So Ọba Adérẹ̀mí kò sọ ìṣe Yorùbá nù, ó fẹ́ fi kún ni. Àfikún rẹ̀ ni ó fi dá àwọn iléèwé wọ̀nyẹn sílẹ̀. Àǹfààní tó jẹ́ fún ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ni pé a lè ní ìlọsíwájú, a lè sọ gbogbo nǹkan tá a ní ká sọnù ká sọ pé gbogbo wa fẹ́ dòyìnbó. Kò ṣeé ṣe. Lórí nǹkan tá a ti ní lọ́wọ́, òun la máa kọ́lé tí a fi ní ìlọsíwájú. Àǹfààní tí Ọọ̀ni Adérẹ̀mí ṣe fún gbogbo ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ni pé ó fi ọ̀nà yẹn hàn wá. Òun àti Awólọ́wọ̀ wá di two peas in a pod, two sides of the same coin. Ìlọsíwájú tí Yorùbá ní láti 1950 títí tí wàhálà fi dé was based upon the unity of purpose led by the Ọọ̀ni of Ife, Adérẹ̀mí, and implemented with humility by Chief Ọbáfẹ́mi Awólọ́wọ̀. Ọ̀nà tí mo rò pé a lè gbà nìyẹn títí tí a fi ní ìlọsíwájú. I want to also salute the Ọ̀ràngún of Òkèlá for modeling what Ọọ̀ni Adérẹ̀mí has put on the ground in setting up schools, in becoming part of the people, not just their king. I am the chairman of Odua Foundation, and I'm happy to report that Dawn Commission and everybody here have started on a path that will lead us to where we want to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Aderinola Richardson, next. Dr. Richardson. Dr. Richardson. Fola, please unmute her. Hello. Fola. Okay, can you unmute Dr. Dapo Thomas Mujemu? Can you unmute Dr. Dapo Thomas? I think his network is a bit slow. Bear with us a second, please. We're trying to unmute. Dr. Dapo Thomas.
Yeah, perhaps maybe we should unmute everybody.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking now. Hopefully, okay, that will not work. So, Dr. Dapo Thomas, you're on mute now, please.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mujemu. You have 2 minutes.
All right. Now, I am impressed by the presentations of all the contributors, particularly my friends, Oyeweso and Akin Alao. Now, my question is this. Having listened to all the contributions, to the achievements and the contributions of the Oba to the establishment of the University of Ife, I begin to wonder, especially in the context of what Professor Oyeweso said, that he finds it difficult to refer to him in the past tense. But unfortunately, when you want to immortalize the legacies of people, these are things which keep their names alive and their legacies alive. Unfortunately, in the University of Ife, we have Fajuyi Hall, we have Angola Hall, we have Awolowo Hall, and then the university is named after Obafemi Awolowo, despite the fact that the Oni died even before Chief Obafemi Awolowo. I want to believe that the federal government, the state government, and even the management of Ife, they have been unfair, to the Oba. So, because there is nothing in the name of Sir Adesoji Aderemi in the university that is of monumental value. And I want to believe that with this kind of snobbish treatment of Sir Adesoji Aderemi by the federal government, the state government, I don't think it is good for a man that we are celebrating with this kind of euphemisms and all sorts of glowing tributes. What can we do to make sure, because even the Oduduwa College, I doubt if it's named after him. So most of the things which can keep up his legacy, which can keep his name alive, are not named after him. So what can be done? What can we do because all these contributions, achievements, and everything, and his input and impact and everything which he made are dying. Everything is dying. And so I'm worried that at a time in some years to come, possibly 5 years, 10 years, we may not even know who he is again or who he was. So this is my fear. We will always remember Awolowo, we will always remember Faju, we will always remember Moremi. So even as a traditionalist, he was qualified. As a politician, he was qualified. So what are we saying? What are we doing to actually immortalize? Because immortalization culture is part of our own legacy in Africa. So what can we do? That's my question.
Okay. Next person.
Dr. Richardson, please. Fola, have you on mute? Is she on mute now? Okay, let's try and get the next person.
Mrs. Adelia
Okay.
Richardson.
Okay, then go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah. Part of what I was going to talk about was the question that the last speaker was asking. And it's part of what, as a family, we want the federal government to take a look at. Baba Aderemi has done so much, not because he's our father, but now that we're celebrating his 40 years, everybody is mentioning all the things he has done. The list is innumerable. And we think it is now time. In fact, they should have done it, but it is now the right time to compensate him. We cannot imagine that they just have to forget him like that. How many things has he not done to promote Nigeria? He's done so much. And as a family, we think the federal government is not doing enough. The state government needs to do a lot as well. Somebody that brought a whole university to his domain and nothing to show for it. I am an old student of University of Ife as well. And if you go to the university campus now, you hear about Fajuyi Hall, you hear about Awolowo Hall and everything like that. Nothing about Adesoji Aderemi. Even the university was named after Obafemi Awolowo. That is like a slap on the face to us family. And all of the things that he did for the whole country, going to several journeys on the nationalist movement of Nigeria, speaking at meetings with the colonial masters and everything like that. Nobody has done anything to show appreciation for that. That is the only way that we can remember him more, by naming so many things after him. By naming so many things after him. All we are doing is we're just looking, because the way Aderemi brought us up, he brought us up in a very nice way to just wait and see what is going to happen. But now nothing is happening. And we are not worried that nothing is happening, but we are just baffled that somebody can be so human, so nice, so hardworking for his own country and for his domain, Ile-Ife, and nobody is acknowledging it. The records are there in the family house to show for it. Before I wrote a book, Nigeria in Transition, about my father, it just laid so heavy on my heart that at the end of the day, I must put on record what my father did, if nobody is going to say anything. And that was when I decided to write the book about 30 years ago. And even after 30 years, the book was sold. I remember the Osun State government, through Governor Rauf Aregbesola, took about 1,000 copies. And that was it. I'm not trying to sell books. I'm just trying to sell my father. I'm trying to sell him, because it's not good for somebody to do so much for the country and not acknowledged.
Okay.
It's not good. We need acknowledgement. We need some sort of the federal government to do something to acknowledge him, to acknowledge all he has done and achieved. My second point is that Baba Aderemi was a human person. He was a humane person, full of humanity. He didn't just love his own children. He loved the children of everybody around him. Even the people, like Dele Momodu said, people that lived with us, that worked with us, they were all his children. Even us children, we always say Baba Gugbaye, because he had a scholarship scheme. He was paying school fees of people in town. He was paying school fees of the people that worked for him. Everybody was his children. He was so generous, so humane, whether you are Hausa or Igbo or anybody. Next to him, he's ready to level up with you and do whatever you need, whatever help you wanted. He was full of humanity. He was full of humanity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ma. Thank you. I want to, sorry, moderator, Professor Adishino, I want to acknowledge, or even though you've done that, but I want to also do that specially. And both of teachers, when I was in Ife as well. So I was in Ife from 84 to 88. So the two next speakers, they were my teachers during the 4 years I spent in that great institution. I say all the time that there are only two universities in Nigeria, Ife and the others. I'm sorry if I say that. So I would like to call on Professor Jacob Olupono to have a word with us, and then Professor Akomo Adebayo will also speak after Professor Olupono. Thank you, sir. Professor Olupono.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You can hear me. Yes, thank you. Kabiyesi, the Ooni of Ife, Oba Ogunwusi, and Kabiyesi, Oba Abolarin, the Oragun of Okela, our distinguished scholars. I am so proud of all of you. I'm so proud of all of you. Even though as an Owo man, I must be jealous that the university was not built in Owo. But I have benefited greatly from Ile-Ife. Ile-Ife is my second home. And I also want to welcome the children of Oba Aderemi here, my uncles, my aunties, my bros, and so on. I have 3 short points to make, and I'll be very brief. The first point is that I am aware that a road has been named after Baba, but Baba deserves more than that. I think Road 1, isn't it? Is Adesoji Aderemi Road. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But he deserves more than that. I would like us to face this in good spirit that we know what the issues are. Let us move forward. How do we now move forward? I'm going to suggest to Dan Commission to work with the children of Baba Obaderemi to come up with concrete proposals that we could pursue in responding to the suggestions made by our highly distinguished speakers. The possibility of establishing a center in its name, possibly on a campus at Ife. That is one. The second, of course, is maybe work with your state government to send to the federal government concrete proposals on ways and means of immortalizing Baba Aderemi. I was very lucky that, you know, I met him, and my late father used to be the Anglican Archdeacon of Ife. And thanks to Uncle Ishola Aderemi, who gave me that very big portrait of, I think that was his last celebration in the church, where the late Archbishop Bolufoso preached the sermon, and my father and Baba Aderemi were there. I cherish that portrait. It's in my house. There's no doubt that Baba had given a lot, but there's one thing I want to mention, which is also very important. The support he gave to scholars doing research, particularly the late Bascom. The late Bascom, who did monumental work on not just the history of Ife, but Ifa divination texts. That book has no rival. It was because Baba supported him and gave him the chance to do that. And I must also commend all these that came after him. Oni Olubushe supported my own work. Without him, I would not have been able to do the book I did on Ile-Ife. And I'm aware that the current Oni is also supporting the works of young scholars. That is the way it should be. This is what our Obas are doing, and they're doing very well. One last comment has to do with the Ife or your thing. It came out, I think, in 2-3 ways in the course of this lecture. I think it is important for our scholars, particularly the historians, to find a way of mapping Yoruba history in the proper context. There was no doubt that when Oyo became an empire, it became an empire and had very significant impact on the entire region. Oyo gave us a language, they gave us a culture, they gave us politics, they gave us a lot. So it is no point trying to argue, is it Ife that is higher or is it Oyo? For me, it's nonsense. I think what is important is for us to map a history of Yoruba people, that at certain times and certain places, this was what happened, so that we can, all of us can build on that. Because this rivalry has created crises and problems unnecessarily among the Yoruba people. This is going to be my challenge to our erudite historians. And I want to thank you again. I really enjoyed all the presentations. I'm glad I woke up very early here to be part of this program. And lastly, Down People Commission, we are very grateful for organizing.
Hello, Dayo.
Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Adebayo, please, sir.
Hello.
Professor Adebayo, please, sir.
All right, thank you very much. And I want to echo Professor Lukman. We all woke up very early here to join the program. And I want to thank the organizers and congratulate Dawn Commission for organizing this. Let me stand on existing protocols and to also thank the panelists. They did a terrific job, and just like them, I was also a graduate of Ife. My first degree, master's and PhD from Ife. So greetings from Atlanta this morning, and I want to mention just one thing that was left unsaid I believe the presenters left it unsaid. That is the place of the monarchy in Yoruba land today. And particularly the current crisis of the monarchy in some of the towns. I would say the new age monarchs that have arisen. How did Oni Aderemi do it? Given even all the constraints that he had, what would any of the new monarchs learn from what Oni Aderemi did in his style of leadership, in his accomplishments? So this is a question for all the panelists, but maybe even for the rest of us. How can we improve the image of the monarchy in Yoruba land today? How does it really work with current government or prospective government? So thank you very much for allowing me to say a few words. And this is a great program, and I encourage us to continue to do something similar.
Thank you so much, sir. Prof, please carry on, sir.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much. Let's take some introductions before we continue with the questions. I'm happy to introduce Eburu of Iba. Sorry, I don't know if I got that right. His Royal Majesty about Professor Adekunle Adeogun Okunye Oyedeji II. Obviously, you are welcome. We are also happy to have amongst us Professor Mike Adeyeye, Dr. Veronica Yolomfong. You're welcome. We have a couple of questions online. Nobody mentioned anything about Oni Aderemi as peacemaker. In his 50 years, there was no Ife Modakeke crisis. There was no Ipetumudu Ashipa crisis, nothing Ife Ipetumudu. Everywhere, Yakoyo, Moro, everywhere was peaceful. The speakers, what do you have to say about that? Then somebody says, can Oyeweso clarify comments on the conflict between Oni Ademiluyi and Aderemi with respect to monopoly capitalism symbolized by car? And then, of course, Professor Lupano has repeated this one. The traits of Oni Aderemi. Why are these traits dying up? And the current Obas in Yoruba land, which of them have they taken on, and why are they repudiating so many of his traits? And then there is somebody who has also indicated interest in speaking before we call on the speakers to respond. Mrs. Ladun Lawal, please unmute Lawal. Mrs. Lawal, 2 minutes. Then, in the absence of any other question, we'll go back to the speaker.
Okay. Sorry, whilst we are trying to unmute Mrs. Ladun Lawal, I would also like to recognize the presence of Egbon Dami Aderemi, Barrister Aderemi, representing the Aderemi clan here. I've just been told that there are about 28 grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and children on this forum this afternoon. We want to say thank you very much. Bros Dami, good afternoon. And we've come a long way. You might not remember, but thank you for honoring our invitation, sir. On behalf of the Aderemi family, thank you, sir.
Okay, do we have Mrs. Ladun Lawal?
Yes, please. I'm ready. I'm here, please.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Good afternoon, my Yoruba family. And I observe all protocols, especially recognizing my royal fathers in attendance. Oba Adeyeye, Ooni of Ife. Onogun Ilela, and my third royal father who just came in. I appreciate you. And I thank the Almighty God for bringing this type of meeting, no matter how short or long it is. I thank God for bringing us together. And I pray that this will continue forever because it will really unite us. I am a native of Ife, and I'm a graduate of the University of Ife, having graduated 50 years ago, and very, very close, like a child in the Aderemi family. I really appreciate you, especially for remembering Baba, and for thinking that it is worth it to remember him more. Building an edifice or something in the university campus. Number one, I want to suggest that, as initially suggested also, that a committee be set up, including some representatives of the Aderemis and some of our people here, forming a committee. Fortunately, the university land is there. We can think of having an edifice for him in the university campus. All we need to do is go through the federal government, approach the federal government, put up a proposal, and get it done. True, the road leading to the university is after him, but that is not enough. And good thing we are thinking of this. I would suggest that Prince Ishola Aderemi, if he's here listening, and if he's not listening, somebody should send the message to him that he must be a member of this committee. And with that, with him, because I know he's a very, very active man in the town and in the family. With this, we should be able to get something through. And that's one. The other point I want to make is, you see, the Almighty God gives peace. The devil brings war. But for as long as our ways are in line with the Almighty God, war will never come our ways. And I am suggesting that true love should exist amongst we Yorubas. And this can be handled by the kings will really assist us in doing this. They can bring us together. We have a good heritage. We have a good history. We have our great-grandparents left attitude, accommodating attitude and loving attitude, which we should keep up. And the Almighty God will assist us to ensure that this continues to be as we want. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Even the grandchildren agreed with you, man.
Happy remembrance of Baba.
Thank you very much, ma.
Thank you.
Yes, ma. Yes, ma. Let me also quickly recognize Professor A.S. Jekede, Director Research Management Office, University of Ibadan. Do we have one KBAC who still wants to respond before we move to we, your subjects? Okay, while they get ready, let me call on Professor Yetade of University of Ibadan, and then after that, Professor Ayodeji Olukoju, and after that, Professor Enyila. Please, these three people should be on cue. Professor S.O. Yetade now. Professor Yetade. Well, if he's not ready, and what of Professor Ayodeji Olukoju? or Professor Balade Yinla? Administrator?
Yeah, I'm trying to get him again on the.
Okay.
Sorry.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, please go ahead, Professor Ayodele.
Yeah. I would like to thank Don, the organizers of this program. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Let me be on video now. My first question is, what is the process of dissemination? Are we going to publish the proceedings? And if so, have the paper presenters placed their study in a comparative context? For example, to compare with what Crowder and Nikime did on West African chiefs, and also the inaugural lecture of Professor Atonda, Kings and Chiefs in History. So I thought that it might be good for us to place Baba's career, Baba's life and times in a comparative context. My second question is about private papers. Do we have the private papers of Baba or Baderemi? And I'm also asking Don, is it possible for Don to drive the process of accumulating or amassing private papers of important dignitaries in this part of the country? My final comment is to the presenters. Is it possible, as Dr. Adesoji has done, Professor Adesoji has done, to have another perspective? In other words, what Baba Deremi did not do or failed to do or did not do properly, so that we have a balanced picture, because in history, we cannot have just a single perspective on a subject. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I hope the professors are taking down notes. We'll soon get to you. Please, Professor Yotade, unmute Professor Yotade, please. Professor Yotade. Then Professor Yinla. Oh.
Okay.
Okay,
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Now,
yes,
I would like to give kudos to all the presenters today. They have done a very nice job. But I want to speak in line with Bashorundele Momodu, that they have not underscored the monarch as a man of peace. During his period, one in their time of crisis between Ife and the neighboring towns and villages, and how was he able to handle, and how was he able to bring peace even to all the towns in these domains? That's my question.
Thank you very much, sir. Professor Yinla.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, please. That's why we can hear you.
Okay. Hello, Tayo.
Yes, sir.
My tribute to the KBAC on your Ife and everybody, and especially my commendation to Down Commission for this gathering. Like I joked with Tayo earlier, this seems to be an Ife Mafia organization. And I did point out to him that they are need to bring separate perspectives, which that people have also raised. They sure need to bring a separate perspective. Really, I think my contribution will be on the role of Oni Aderemi in terms of troubleshooting and conflict resolution within the Yoruba nation. I do have a personal experience of his role in this regard concerning the Olowo crisis in 1968 through my father, who was an active member of the community at that time. If I do recall correctly, the Olowo took over from Oni later on in the heat of the crisis as the chairman of the Western House of Chiefs. But interestingly, when the Owo crisis was at its peak, the Oni
actually sent a delegation of Yoruba Obas to come and appeal to the Yoruba people not to treat Saolateru the way they had planned to treat him. It was not because of lack of effort that Saolateru was eventually banished and dethroned. I think it was because of the determination of the forces railed against him. So I think it's extremely important to bring out the role of Sir Aderemi in terms of troubleshooting and conflict resolution to preserve the traditional institution in the Yoruba nation. Also along this line, I'm not sure any of the speakers have spoken about the central role that Sir Aderemi undertook in attempting to resolve the Western regional crisis from '62. Even his resignation as governor was supposed to be part of the solution, but I'm not sure I've had too much of his role in terms of attempting to resolve the Western region crisis, which laid the foundation for the death of the Fourth Republic. My last contribution will be the point made by Ayo Olukoju about private papers. Sometimes during my research, I was in Ikene to look at the private collections of Anowoman. And in the collections in Ikene, I saw there were private correspondence
Quickly
between
look for the Eburu of
Chief
Iba.
Awolowo and
You
Chief
want to
Ajasco.
speak now, Eburu of Iba. Ó dà pé kọ́ tó fi register dẹ̀ mi o. Tètè wá, lóun náà máa pè é sí.
Okay.
Eburu of
Can I
Iba,
go
ṣó
on
ti rí?
for the introduction?
Please go ahead, sir.
Okay. I will think that there will be need to also go to Ikene to look at the Awolowo Library, to look at private correspondence between and the Oni. I'm sure it will be extremely interesting between the two of them. The position of Alaafin Adeyemi True in the thinking of the Oni and in advising Awolowo, because apparently Awolowo held him in extremely high regard in advice to Awolowo in handling the insurrection within the AG and of course the confederation that followed thereafter. And I think this should not be left at this level. I think there's a need to document this because we are all forgetting our history and are forgetting the great things that have been achieved within this Yoruba nation. We have been branded as the most noisy, most arrogant, and most sophisticated people within this polity. But it is for reason. And it is because of things that people like Sir Aderemi did that we can stand on their shoulders to claim this heritage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate your intervention. Well, we are going to make the question or comments from Kabiyesi the last one before we go back to the presenters. Kabiyesi Eburu of Iba, you have the floor, sir.
Ẹ ṣé mo dúpẹ́. Mo kí Kábíyèsí bàbá wa Ọ̀nìrìṣà, Kábíyèsí aláṣẹ, ẹ kó wa jẹ̀pẹ́. Mo kí gbogbo àwọn orí adé tó wà nínú àpérò yìí. Àjọṣepọ̀ wa kò ní bàjẹ́ o. Mo kí gbogbo wa pátápátá, gbogbo ẹ̀yin pòfẹ́sọ̀ wa fún ètò tí ẹ gbé kalẹ̀ yìí. A dẹ̀ dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ Dawn Commission náà. Ẹ kú iṣẹ́ kò ní rẹ̀ yín. Mo dẹ̀ kí sẹ́nétọ̀ wa tó jẹ́ ọmọ bàbá náà, Jídé Ọmọwúrà rẹ̀, ẹ kú iṣẹ́ o. We sincerely appreciated this kind of a program which we use to remember our Baba, who has done tremendously, for our institution, the Obasipa institution, and in general, governance and government in Nigeria and beyond. We've been always celebrating Babawa Adesoji Aderemi for is a significant achievement and a contribution to humanity. And there's this tendency that people, like one of the speakers, rightly indicated, comparing the achievement of Baba with what that they target modern day kings that we are doing, today. But we seem not to try to understand the difference between the era, what was happening in the era of Baba and what is happening today. Why we celebrate Baba for his achievement in politics, because we've related, Baba to all the noble politicians and our, leaders. Talk about Baba Bapemi Awolowo and Baba. So we know for fact that the Baba was able to achieve, of course, we knew him, we heard about him before he even ascended the throne, but what he was able to accomplish has to do with, the power that he had under the law, and it's a deep involvement in politics, because we know today without, that law behind you, and actually the involvement in politics, there's almost nothing that can be done. So why we are celebrating Baba and record his achievement, which we know has a lot to do with what he was able to do, in politics. They are asking us to this monarch to abstain and stay away from politics. And this is a question, for our panelists, Professor Yeweso and the others. Why are we asking today's Oba not to be involved in politics, knowing fully well that almost nothing can be done, can be achieved without the law, and actually without the power that, of course, politics now invested in those, in the politicians that are really not. So that's my question. And thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Well, may I at this juncture also introduce Professor Adebowale, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration, University of Ibadan, and Professor Segun Ajiboye, also of the University of Ibadan. Thank you, Kabiesi. Now we can go back to the presenters. Can we do this in reverse order now? The presenters, are you ready? Please unmute the presenters. Professor Tunde Babawale. Professor Babawale.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Okay, sir.
May I know how many minutes I have?
Well, I think we can still manage 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. This is just my response to a few of the questions that I think I can provide answers to. First, I recall that Professor Jegede asked how we can use the experience of Oni Aderemi to educate our children. I think this kind of program that has been put together by the Dawn Commission is one way out of it. And whatever comes out of it by way of publication can then be distributed across our schools, in the Southwest in particular, so that our children can learn more about again, I think I should name a monument after him. I think this is more than well deserved. We must start an advocacy for that. And Dawn can also lead the charge of encouraging our governors in the Southwest to name monuments after the late Oba Aderemi. This is very, very important. Professor Lukoju, he raised the issue of, he made the point that even if you have a center dedicated to Ife studies or whatever, what he thinks is of paramount importance is for us to make his private papers available. This is also critical. And I would want to urge that it may be necessary for Dawn to also lead this charge, for us to encourage our government to, especially the Osun State governor in this instance, to lead that, to take leadership of that process of finding a way to put together the late Oni's private papers. Now, Oba the Eburu of Iba asked when that though people are asking that the contemporary Obas emulate what Oni Aderemi did, but it's also paradoxical that that in this present day they are asking them to stay away from politics. But I don't think that we can stay away from politics. Man is a political animal, and either we like it or not, the traditional rulers are in one way or the other involved in politics. They are not asking them to to campaign for political offices, but at least to play the politics of development and to join in mobilizing their community behind such politics. I think that's what we demand, and that's what people expect from them. On the issue of role as a peacemaker, a lot has been said, though not as forcefully as would have wanted it. His role as a peacemaker has been alluded to by quite a few of us who made contributions. And I did say in my contribution that he, along with others, attempted and made spirited effort to intervene in the political crisis that occurred within the action group in 1962. And that in fact, it was the failure of that exercise that preceded the eventual crisis that we experienced in the Western region and by extension later Nigeria. So my view is that Oni played a crucial role in the maintenance of peace, even within his own community. The art of moving about, making himself available for consultation, going within the community to show that he understands the feelings of the people is also is a peacemaking gesture. I think that these are just the few areas that I would like to comment upon. Thank you, Mr. Mod.
Thank you very much. I've just seen a question from Emeritus Professor Abiola Odejide. From a human interest angle, Baba also made strategic alliances in terms of his marriages. Well, yes. Well, I'd like somebody to address that, but I'm also directly involved because they call him Omoadekunbi Ikpetu, and that's my hometown. So I'm also part of that strategic alliance in a way. So could somebody else also address that? Thank you very much. Let's go to Professor Abimbola Adesoji now.
Thank you very much, sir. Let me start on that note, sir. And that is that even in the management of the Shakole issue in Ife, which has been a thorny issue in the Ife-Modake relation, we saw Oba Adesoji Aderemi playing the role of a mediator to the point that he was labeled as being supportive of either of the side. His principle was that there should be peace. Is a case of live and let live. And he stretched out the olive branch over and over again, finding ways to accommodate people all around him. So part of the strategic alliance was, you have rightly made reference to the father, his wife, Adekunbi Chola, was from Ikpetu. Part of the allegations that were levied against Oni Aderemi was that he could not act decisively when the issue of Ishakole came up, because his second wife and his favorite wife was an Oyo woman, was from Modaeke. And so, while he was trying to balance issues such that if it would be accommodated, Modaeke would be accommodated, he eventually found himself in a dilemma. Dilemma as to being labeled by Ife, over which he was the Oni, and also being labeled by Modaeke as being supportive of the Oni. So he tried to do that. And so much of the wives he married were ways of reaching out to compounds within Ife and also reaching out to other parts of Yoruba community. Essentially, the question I want to dwell on extensively to a large extent is the issue of that was raised in the, on the screen in the chat, and that is that what were those changes that took place? What were the sociocultural development that Adesoji Aderemi was trying to respond to? And I start from the fact that before the introduction of indirect rule, we have the Obas who have all the power to themselves. They had all the power. They were known as the owner of land, lord of life. In Ife, in other parts of Yoruba land, they were known as Alashe Ekeji. But as far as Ife community was concerned, the Oni was Alashe Orisha. He was a deity himself who could do and undo. We had all the power. And so when indirect rule came, even though the impression was still given that they could exercise power, but they were more of stooges who were just speaking on behalf of the colonial government. And from there, another change took place. They were taken to the level of really exercising power on behalf of the colonial government. That was when they were constant to sole native authority. And that continued until 1952, when local government reform came in Western Nigeria, which took the power completely from the traditional ruler. And at different points, we saw them responding to these changes that took place at different times. Whereas the Onu could sit as the head of the sole native authority, by 1950, you could no longer do that, such that if a divisional council and if a district council could exercise power over him to the point of threatening to remove him from the Obaship. So, and why that changes, why the change was not only limited to Yoruba land, but it was also going on in Nigeria. It was that change that made a traditional ruler to belong to the House of Assembly first and foremost, eventually became members of House of Chief and the president of House of Chief, which gave him a platform to travel to Britain in 1948, which eventually gave him a platform to become a minister without portfolio between 1950 and 1952 when he resigned as a result of the crisis over the move for self-government. And it was that change that still made him a governor from the office from where he resigned in 1962 as a result of the crisis in Western Nigeria. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Adesoji Abimbala. We are hoping to read all this in your chapter contribution. Thank you very much. Let's call on Professor Akin Alao now to give us his.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me quickly respond to one or two questions raised by the audience. And the first one would be to react to Professor Lukoju's comment about the availability of Sir Adesoji Aderemi's papers. I think there is a collection of papers in the glass house, but there should be an extra effort to collect and collate these papers and make them accessible to the reading public. I would not want to put the burden of doing that on the Dawn Commission, but I'd like to suggest that there should be an arrangement between the Aderemi family and Obafemi Awolowo University to get this done so that people can access these materials. Baba was truly intellectual and had a very impressive collection of papers and actually invested his time and resources getting this together. And I think it should be available. The other point raised by Professor Olukoju was about balance in our assessment of the role of Baba in all of this. I actually concentrated attention on how he enhanced the status of the monarchical institution in Yoruba land and in Africa. And along the line, we discovered that he had his own problems too. Not that there were no crises, there were crises in Ife, in Yoruba land as at that time, but his greatness was actually in his capacity to manage crisis. He had a wonderful capacity to manage crisis. And I like to cite two examples. One already cited by my colleague, Professor Adesoji, about Ishakole in Ile-Ife. How he managed that crisis actually pitched him against some elements within the Ife community, to the extent that he was accused of doing certain things, and he actually lost some prominence even amongst them. The other one was the Ife Forest Reserve, which became a very sour point in his leadership of Ile-Ife. It was like an insider trading deal, and he was accused, especially by the youth in Ile-Ife, to the extent that his farm, the Aderao Timber Company, which had monopoly over the exploitation of the forest reserve in Ife, was actually fined £300 for appropriating all these resources. And so the Ife community had their own running battle with the Kabiyesi, but they had a wonderful way of resolving this crisis. And it is in this that you see his greatness. The other example would be the Fani Kayode Adesoji Aderemi crisis of 1958-59, which was very bitter to the extent that Fani Kayode lost his position as representative of Ife in the Legislative Council. That was what led to the emergence of M.A. Omishade, and how that became another sore point in Oba Adesoji Aderemi's relationship with the younger elements in Ile-Ife. But somehow, Oba Adesoji Aderemi was able to bend backwards over to accommodate Fani Kayode, and to the extent of making him the Balogun of Ife. That would be another example of his capacity to get out of crisis. The other point is to see him, especially in relation to his activities as the leader of Egbe Omodudua, and how he was able to galvanize people together, how he was able to sustain their interest in Egbe Omodudua, and how he managed the crisis that was brewing in Egbe Omodudua when he tried to transport into a political party. It was a big crisis, and there was need for people to underscore the point that Egbe Omodudua started as a cultural association, not as a political party. And like Arifalu has rightly said, the Egbe Omodudua provided support for the action group. Not that the Egbe Omodudua was a political party, it was a cultural organization. But along the line, Oba Adesoji Aderemi was able to manage this crisis to the extent that he came out of this without losing his position as the foremost Oba in Yoruba land during this time. It is also on record that Sir Adesoji Aderemi was selfless, and that should be a plus for him. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. We also want to exhort you to remember all these points when you're also writing up your chapter. Thank you so much. And on the comments you made on the papers, the Adesoji Aderemi papers, there is also a section of the University of Ibadan. If they don't want Ife, they can always come to Ibadan. There is a section of the University of Ibadan library that is known as the Special Collection Section. That's why we have the Abat Macaulay papers, the Ransom Kuti papers. So it's not going to be. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's go back to Professor Yeweso now. Professor Yeweso, 2 minutes, please. We are running short of time. 2 minutes. Professor Yeweso.
Hello.
Yes, sir. We are waiting for you, sir.
All
2
right.
minutes.
Yeah, first clarification is that it is true that the Arabeshola administration purchased X number of books, but it is also true that an expressway in Ushubu had been named after Oba Adesoji Aderemi. We call it Onababa Ono in Ushubu. So that is there. But the immortalization is still yet to be done. There is a need to have complete digitization of Oba Adesoji Aderemi private papers. Digitization is a new approach for preservation of documents. It is now beyond the way the Macaulay papers and all other papers have been. So we should pursue digitization. The moment that is done, we know that, yes. The area that I know, I'm aware that we have not covered, and Professor, our distinct professor of religion, Ulukono, mentioned, one area is this. Olojo Festival was internationalized by Oba Adesoji Aderemi. He commissioned Bascom for a special study in 1937 on Olojo Festival. And today, Olojo Festival used to be a restricted festival, scheduled for the mornings. But today, Olojo Festival, it was Adesoji Aderemi that changed it to afternoon, so that even other Nigerians, other Kabiyesi in Yoruba land, will have opportunity of participating. Oba Adesoji Aderemi was the first person to allow a lady, his daughter, Princess Tejumade Aderemi, to visit Okemogun. He took his daughter along. That was the first time any woman would be a witness, a participant in Olojo Festival. But today, Olojo Festival is an international festival. In Oyo Ife relations, I think we owe it a duty as professional historians to look at the point of harmony, areas where there have been excellent relationship between Ife and Oyo, people tend to undermine that particular area. In 1951, from 1948 in particular, when Egbe Modudowa was established and Action Group later, all the Obas were patrons of the Egbe, including Oni, Olowo, Oshemawi, Alaafin, and all of them made substantial contribution to the funding of Egbe. I can recall, according to Professor Olufemi Wong, that in 1952, Oni contributed 110 pounds to financing the party. Awujale also contributed 110 pounds. That was 1951. In 1952, Osemawe contributed 110. Oni contributed 110. Alaafin contributed 150. They were together until 1954-1955 crisis, which led to the banishment of Oba Adeniran Adeyemi II. Beyond that, between Oba Adesoji Aderemi and Oba Lamidi Adeyemi III, there was rapprochement between them, what we call diplomatic correspondence. That was a crisis. The politics of Bide Crown in Ikire axis was almost snowballing. The Kabiyesi Alaafin wrote a diplomatic letter in 1970s to Oni that, look, let us look at all this. And the matter was amicably resolved. Between the Timi Ofede, Oba Adetoye Laoye, and Oni Adesoji Aderemi, they had long disputes, boundary disputes, Edunabon boundary dispute. Professor Adeyugbe, formerly of the Department of Geography, did an excellent job on this particular area. When there was a crisis and the need for it to be resolved constitutionally, the mere fact that they were in court did not mean they did not leave diplomatic correspondence open. In Ojoyin Street, Ile-Ife, Oba Agbono II lived there. And for long, he knew Oba Adesoji Aderemi well, learned a lot from him. I'm a beneficiary of the institution of monarchy, progressive monarchy. I would not have had opportunity of a university education today because my dad believed at that time wrongly that the moment I had access to university education, I was going to become a faithless person. I would abandon his religion and so on and so forth. It was the monarchy of Alodokun Oyewusi Agboran II who learned from the feet of Oni and awarded me a 4-year scholarship in Ile-Ife, in the University of Ife. We are still learning from this great monarch. Others are learning. It was under his feet that Aloko, or the late Aloko Olashore, established international school and a private school. Abolani College, Okeila, a school for the needy and the less privileged and disadvantaged people in society. And the final point, the modern day Obas must go back to the institution of Ipebi, where the art and science of Obaship, leadership training. In the past, as an Oba elect, you will stay in Ipebi for 3 months. And during that period, you'll be taught the nuances of governance and how you will be able to govern the community very, very well. On this note, I want to thank the Dawn Commission, the moderator, our Kabiyesi, the Eburu of Iba, and everybody, Onogon Fokela, the exceptional monarch, the regal monarch. I know the Eburu is also doing beautifully well. He is a computer expert, and I know he has endowed so many people, particularly in the field of education, computer education, ICT, information communication technology. So what we just recommend, the model, education is an instrument of empowerment. It is that thing when you give it to a child, you cannot take it back. Oba Adesoji Aderemi invested in female education, which we have not really explored. In order, after this, the presenters will be able to relate with Dawn Commission and also the work as may be appropriate as recommended by Professor Enyila. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. We are gradually coming to the end of the program, but before we do so, let me quickly welcome Emeritus Professor Ayobanjo, former Vice Chancellor, University of Ibadan, longest Vice Chancellor of the university, and National Merit Award winner. You are welcome, sir. Then I also welcome Professor Shegun Ajiboye, the Registrar of Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria. You are welcome, sir. Ambassador Philip Dada Ogunlade, welcome. Richard Awobomu from Ghana, Honorable Bayo Olatunji, Dr. Adenekon from Germany, His Royal Highness Prince Oluboshi Omishore, and then especially let's welcome and thank the Abolorin College for being with us right from the beginning to the end of the program. There are so many of you that we cannot mention by name, but as they used to say elsewhere, God knows all of you. So we thank all of you for the honor of joining this program. We appreciate all our speakers, and thank you very much to our royal fathers, especially the Oni, His Royal Majesty. Let me now hand you over to the DG of the Dawn Commission, who will now give the closing remarks. Thank you, sir.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, Professor Additional. It has been a wonderful 3.5 hours, if my calculation is right. This has been amazing, and I'm glad we organized this. And thanks to your technical contribution at all times, you Professor Additional, and I must say this openly, Professor Additional put this together on behalf of the Dawn Commission as well. Thank you, Professor Additional. He's always my go-to person. Whenever I need to do anything historical, I just pick up my phone, and he's always ever willing to attend to our needs. So thank you, sir, Professor Additional. And Amarieba will always come back. Anyway, my closing remarks, and I need to say this before we get into any other thing, because I've just been told that one of the Aderemis, we like to thank everybody. But my closing remarks is straightforward, sir. When we conceived the idea of Yoruba historical conversation a few years ago, it was because we suddenly realized that it was a trend. We realized that some of us were probably apologizing for being Yoruba. We became apologetic once they say you are Yoruba. And we realized that it's because maybe a lot of us do not even understand what it means to be a Yoruba man, a Yoruba woman. This is a race with exceedingly rich history, but suddenly, maybe because history was no longer taught, and it became a fad to even bastardize our names. So the Oluwashina will become one funnily spelled Oluwashina, or the Ogunleye will now become Oluwaleye, all because of our, I'm sorry if anyone has done that here, but I need to say it, all because we've been misinformed over the years. But we told ourselves that at Dawn Commission, we must bring this back. We must emphasize, let our people know who we were and who we once were and who we are now and where we're going. So we're basically using this to connect our past to our present in order for us to have a future. And make no mistake about it, the Yoruba will have a big role to play in this country called Nigeria. And I want us, no one here should be apologetic for being Yoruba. Please don't. Raise up your heads anywhere, participate, put forward, I mean, what's it called? What do we say now? Chest out when it comes to matters of Yoruba. One of the challenges we have faced recently, when I mean recently, probably over the last 40 years or 50 years in this country, one of the challenges Yoruba faces, yes, we are intellectuals, but at times we over-intellectualize our existence, that we are losing out, even as a race in this country, because we tend to rationalize everything. And At times when we need to stand up and defend our race, we don't do it. We don't. We will say, oh no, I must not be seen as a tribalist. Oh, I must be on the higher ground. I'm not saying you should be a tribalist, but there's nothing stopping you from defending your race intellectually. You shouldn't be somewhere where they're trying to relegate your race and you're saying, oh, well, I'm an intellectual, I won't fall for that. On a more serious note, we need to do that once in a while. There are challenges that the Yoruba are facing. We know that are done commission in several aspects. And we shouldn't hide under the issue that, oh, it's federalism that is not allowing us to. There are so many things we can do, even within this present structure called Nigeria. Because at times we tend to go into our shell and say, well, the reason we have not done this is because there is the federal structure is not allowing us. I'm sorry, there are 1,001 things that our present constitution, the Nigerian constitution, allows us to do. And if we do that, we can strengthen our zone. We can strengthen the 6 or 6+2 states, and the +2 states know themselves. We can strengthen those areas. There are things we can do. And in our own, and I'm glad that the gathering that we put together here, God, I mean, I wasn't expecting this. Please, in your own little corner, whatever contribution you can make for the Yoruba race to go back to its place. I mean, we used to be #1 in so many areas in this country, and we are not there anymore. We don't need to deceive ourselves, but we can still rekindle our interest in our race. We can still, as much as possible, go back to where we once were. I mean, that lofty height that we attained. So today we are talking of what the Obaderemis did in the 30s and the 40s, the Awolowos, the Akintolas, the Adeis, the Oshutokuns. We remember all of them, the Simeon Adebos. Where are they today? At times we've allowed politics to drive a wedge between us in Yoruba land, and politics is dragging us back. So what I'm trying to say is that we need to put our heads together, concentrate minds. Let us concentrate minds. Look at it. I'm sorry I'm going into this as well. Let's look at the economy of Yoruba land as an example. Look at our states. Maybe only Lagos, probably Ogun, can exist without federal allocation. That shouldn't be the case. If we want to eat today in Yoruba land, we look towards the north. If we want to clothe ourselves, we look towards the east. Then what are we doing as a people? So as much as possible, I will implore us to, from our own little corner, look for ways to engage this race. Look for ways. There's nothing too little to do. Don't think I'm only an intellectual or a professor, or I'm only a small multi-millionaire in my corner. No one knows me. Then we tend, for some of us, my generation inclusive, we tend to run away from leadership. We say, oh, our leaders. Then we start referring to the 90-year-old, 95-year-olds as our leaders, when we should allow them to rest and the younger ones should take charge. But we tend to pass the buck. All I'm saying is, in our own little corner, let us reconnect to the Yoruba race. Let us reconnect to Western region. So when we shouldn't be talking of a better past. We should be talking of a brighter future. Cocoa House, I'm not sure. Cocoa House was commissioned was opened in 1965. I mean, our offices is in Cocoa House there. I'm not sure any government in Southwest has put up a building that size since 1965. Correct me if I'm wrong. So what I'm saying is, I mean, there's a video I watched the other day on this, when television was brought to Africa, the first in Africa in WNTV. From conception to the grand opening, it shows the power of vision. All I'm saying is, as much as possible, let us reconnect. What in our own little corner done commission, we will do this. We'll do this much more often. All the papers that has been discussed today, we will collect, put it together, share it with everyone. But let us take things away from here. We don't want it to just be a talk show. All the recommendations, all the ideas on immortalizing Obaderemi, we will push it. as much as possible. We'll push it. But all I'm saying is please don't take a back seat. Don't take a back seat. The next 2-3 years, and I'm saying this guardedly, this is 2020. The next 2-3 years, it's going to be critical for Yoruba land. In whatever capacity that you think you can enhance Yoruba land, please participants, or don't be don't adopt. This is not the time to adopt sit-down look. The time for sit-down look is over. For sit-down look is long over. It is said that we are 25 years behind the North in agriculture today. Western Nigeria is 25 years behind the North in agriculture. You might not know that. Lagos and Ogun, 13,000 cows are slaughtered every day. Cows, Malu, 13,000 are slaughtered daily. And we bring everything from the North. There's a lot we can do here. Dawn Commission will, and I tell you what, don't think Dawn Commission is, yes, we have 6 states subscribing to Dawn. But trust me, we need the help from people like you outside there. We need that intellectual help. For those of you who have the financial muscle, we need the financial help as well. It is in our own interest for organizations like Dawn Commission to survive. We have succeeded in bringing the 6 states to talk with each other. That journey that we started 6 years ago at Dawn, we must make sure it takes the region to the expected destination. Once again, I would like to say thank you, sir. I'm sorry for my rants, but I need to bring this out. I would like to say thank you for your time. I mean, we've taken a lot of your hours, but it's been worth our while listening, learning. And I thank all I'm not going to start mentioning names again because we've done all that, but thank my teachers, my fathers who are here. I saw Professor Adeniran Adeboye there. Thank you. And for all our speakers, Professor Akin Alao, Shion Oyeweso, Professor Abimbola, Professor Babawale, thank you. I'm not going to say thank you to Professor Additional because he's one of us, so we can't be thanking ourselves. So thank you for everyone who, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. And when we call on you again, please participate. And again, I would like to say thank you to the Aderemi family for allowing us to do this. When this idea came up, I told them that we are also on board and we want to do it. So thank you for allowing us. Senator Morare, thank you. Bros Dami, once again, I'd like to say thank you. And Bob D, as I always say, Esheu, thank you very much, sir, for honoring us. Eshegon. I would like to, I've been told that one of the Aderemis would like to say thank you. They've not given me a name. So just for like 1 minute. Okay, I've just been told that it's going to be Adelu, well, Olatunde Aderemi. Ade Olatunde Aderemi to speak on, to just say thank you on behalf of the Aderemis. Fola, please unmute Olatunde Aderemi for 1 minute. Please bear with us. It is essential they do this. Please bear with us. Fola, we're waiting. And our young Ewi lady will wish us goodbye the traditional way. So please don't run away, don't log off. She will spend about 2 minutes just to say goodbye in the traditional way. Fola?
I'm not sure if Mr. Olatunde.
Can we get someone else to please do that on behalf of the Aderemis?
Aderemi is on line.
Adelupo Aderemi. Okay, please. Adelupo Aderemi.
Okay. Adelupo
Aderemi. Yeah.
Professor Iweso, please mute your microphone.
It is in our own interest for organizations like Adelupo Aderemi.
Yeah. I think his microphone is not enabled. So can we have someone else to do that on their behalf, sir?
Please, can we have someone else? Do we still have Barrister Aderemi online?
We have Mr. Adedamola Aderemi, Adelekon Aderemi.
Yes, Adedamola Aderemi. Yes, Adedamola Aderemi. Just unmute him.
Okay. Okay.
Fola, we are having feedback from you. Fola, we are having feedback from you. Well, anyway, maybe we just have to move straight to the Ewi lady to say thank you and goodbye to all of us. Once again, I would like to say thank you. It's an honor to host everyone via Zoom. Yes, someone said earlier on that such an occasion like this ought to have been held physically, but this is the new abnormal, as I say, and we just pray that the time will come when we'll be able to make human contacts again. This is convenient, but I'm not a fan of it. It's as simple as that. You should not remove human contact from the, I mean, maybe the Oyibos can do that, but here in Africa, our existence is our Owambe lifestyle, as someone said the other day. So thank you once again, says. The Ewi lady, Omodayo. Fola? Is she still there? Unmute her. I think she's still there. Unmute her. Fola? Okay. Hello, Fola? Unmute the Ewi lady, or she left as well? Okay. Omodayo. Yeah. Okay, no, don't worry. Okay, no worries then. Anyway, again, I think she's also disappeared. Okay, let me then do the closing remarks. Well, I've done the closing remarks. So thank you very much, everybody, for participating, and I wish you all very well. Thank you. On behalf of my colleagues at Dawn Commission as well who are here, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye, sir.